Frankenhooker, you don't have to put on the neck bolts.
I don't want to see an ordinary film. I want to see something extraordinary.
Your sacrifice completes my sanctuary of 1,000 testicles.
Do you ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
Let's rock indeed. Welcome to 1000 Wives of Weird, a podcast that celebrates weird movies. And I'm Brad Hefner, and with me as always is...
Billy Martell.
And this week we return to the wonderful, wild, weird world of Frank Henenlotter,
Oh my
who we
God.
previously talked about in our basket case episode.
Yes.
Frank Henenlotter is... I don't know how to... Like, I want to give the man some accolades before we even get into this. Because
I think the last... I just listened to our basket case episode again to sort of like get back in the Frank Henenlotter zone, as if watching Frankenhooker wasn't enough to do that. What I called him in the last episode was a sleazemeister.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that gives him enough credit. Because,
no, and also...
Because he is an exploitation filmmaker. He absolutely, and very intentionally, places himself in this world of wild and weird and crazy shit.
Yes.
But he's like a legitimately, like we were talking about with Russ Meyer.
Yeah.
He may deal in sleaze, but he is a legit, fantastic movie maker.
Absolutely. And it also, I feel like calling him a sleazemeister doesn't capture the fun Frank Henenlotter clearly has when he makes a film.
That's very true.
He's like some pervert fairy who's just having the best time making his vulgar,
God.
strange, violent form of magic on the eyes of sleeping humans. Like,
I think that might be one of the most perfect descriptions of Frank Henenlotter's energy. If you ever watch an interview with him, he's like this older guy now, but he's got this manic New Yorker energy to him, where he's just sort of like. He's talking about this Frankenhooker is this movie that we're talking about today. Yes. I don't remember if we mentioned it or not.
We did not yet. I just wanted to...
Sure. But I was watching the behind-the-scenes stuff about this movie because I remembered how much fun I had with the behind-the-scenes material from Basket Case. He apparently had like a lot of difficulties with making this movie. Even through like talking about like all this crap that he went through in making the film. He's like, he's so much energy. He's talking about like how apparently this movie... Bill Murray would hang around with him in the editing booth because he was making the same movie a different movie in an editing booth, and how he got to become friends with Bill Murray over the course of just making this movie because Bill Murray loves Frankenhooker, apparently. I mean, how can you not love Frankenhooker? Frankenhooker is a film that, like, I watched this about a year ago. Sure.
While I was working on a play that I did not have a very big role in, so when I was done with my 10 minutes on stage, I would go to the green room and watch most of a movie.
Sure.
And sometimes I would tell the cast what I was watching during mic check. And I was very proud to announce that I was watching Frankenhooker.
What a great title.
Even more proud after I loved it so much and was telling a man we both know who has won an Academy Award how great the film Frankenhooker is.
Yes.
Frank Henenlotter has such a unique vision.
My God, yes.
He tells stories. Granted, if you couldn't tell, this is a Frankenstein riff.
Yes.
But he is still telling stories that are unapologetically his own.
My God, yes.
If you ever watch Bad Biology, that is going to go to Colonel Kurt's extremes. But the man just has such a beautiful, twisted, dedicated vision, while also still being a ton of wacky fun.
Yeah.
As mentioned, we're talking about Frankenhooker.
We are.
And let's get something else out of the way. I'm very sex worker positive. I believe sex work is real work. I don't think it should be denigrated in any way.
I agree completely.
Anybody who engages in any aspect of sex work deserves respect.
Yes. As just a human being, if nothing else.
Exactly. Hooker, I don't think that's I think that's more of a pejorative now.
More of a pejorative term, sure, yeah.
So let's just get it out of the way that this was 1990.
Yep.
We're not trying to hurt or insult anybody with anything we say. And if you find this movie offensive, again, as we always say, that is well within your right.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you find the title Frankenhooker offensive, if you find any of the things that happen in this movie, even though, and I want to stress, I don't believe that Frank Henenlotter wishes ill will to any human being in this world.
I don't think so either. I think it's very much a John Waters vibe. Where he's
absolutely.
Like, this is crazy and silly, and
Yep.
I truly believe that Frankenhooker is a feminist work.
I don't know if I would go that far. I saw you saying that on Facebook earlier. I am fascinated to hear your spiel about this, but I don't know that I would go that far. I view Frankenhooker as sort of like a long build up to a punchline.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is.
Like a really long sort of joke that you would tell in a bar.
But that punchline is sort of it's almost backwards. It's the thesis statement for the feminism of the film.
Okay, fair enough.
When I first watched Frankenhooker, obviously I did not think that way until I saw the end.
The climax.
And so when I was watching it again, I was going in being like, I'm going to look closer for these vibes.
Okay, and so you've had some time to build this up.
Yeah.
Whereas was my first time watching this.
Sure.
I am surprised a little bit. Last episode that we did Frank Henenlotter on, you were really into the movie Bad Biology.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be the next Henenlotter that we talked about. I'm surprised that we went to Frankenhooker first.
Well, again, we were going to talk about Bad Biology and could not find it.
Is that what we... Oh, that's right, because Steven chose
picked
it. All right, never mind. Cut all that shit. So, brief plot description of Frankenhooker. Again, very much a take off of Frankenstein with a little bit of the brain that wouldn't die sprinkled on top. A young mad scientist who's... dealing with a family that doesn't necessarily understand him, has a young fiancée who's accidentally killed in a horrifying accident. All he has left of her is her head. And what's a poor mad scientist to do but to build her a new body? And where is he going to find willing bodies to make her body out of, but at the local red light district? And now let's talk about our recommendations.
So, Billy, would you recommend Frankenhooker?
I absolutely, if it wasn't clear enough from what we've just been saying, 100%. I fucking loved this movie. Granted, I am one of the biggest fans of Frankenstein I have ever met. This movie definitely has like a... we talked about, in the Basket Case episode, that you had recently been watching a lot of Herschel Gordon Lewis movies.
Yes.
And it felt like Basket Case was taking off of that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't seen any Herschel Gordon Lewis, so
You should, just so you have the knowledge and you have
as
a few
film
under your
nerds,
belt.
yeah.
You don't have to.
You didn't really give me a huge glowing endorsement of those films.
No.
But I have been a fan for a long time of the Hammer horror Frankenstein movies and of the Universal horror Frankenstein movies. And this movie references both heavily.
Okay.
And so that was like already a huge thumbs up from me. On top of that, this has all the wacky, weird Henenlotter shit. We talked about how Basket Case was like a little bit more tame than we were expecting. This is absolutely like a huge upgrade in terms of sleaze. I still think that I like Basket Case a little bit better than Frankenhooker, just personal taste. But this movie is so good and it's so funny and it's I would say fun for the whole family if there weren't so much nudity. But honestly,
actually, there's not a lot of nudity. There's one nude scene
in Frankenhooker.
Well, I forgot about the other one.
There's like a lot.
Yeah, there's a party. There's a party.
There's quite a lot of nudity in Frankenhooker.
Grant, I watched this in pieces.
Okay, fair enough.
So
gotcha. But I honestly, it's sort of like I once heard Todd in the Shadows, a YouTuber that I enjoy, called CeeLo Green's "Fuck You" the F-bomb that the whole family can enjoy.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the sleazy horror picture that the whole family can enjoy.
Sure.
With the exception of the climax, which, despite all the weird shit that I've seen on the show, some elements of the climax of this movie still managed to disturb me.
Oh my god, it was amazing.
It was so
amazing.
So amazing. It was exactly like you talk about having a drop, and like Unforgiven is like a drama, and then there's the drop at the end where that's what this movie is. It's like it's all like a sort of like lighthearted black comedy, and then there's the drop right there. Yeah. It's so good.
So obviously, I would recommend it. I think just spreading the word of Frankenhooker to people gives me joy, because I
Giving the good word.
yeah, because just that name is so it strikes something in people where they're simultaneously like, that sounds dumb, but it also sounds awful. It sounds dumb, it sounds awful, and it sounds vulgar.
Yes.
And they're dealing with these three things hitting them simultaneously where they're like, oh, okay.
That's what you're into.
And it's also just wonderful to describe literally the first 5 minutes of the film as
God.
the premise. And it's a magical bit of film that, like, everybody should watch. Like, if you're okay with some nudity and some weird shit,
Yeah.
watch Frankenhooker and have a blast. Like this, I feel like this is one of those movies that people would mistakenly categorize as a good, bad movie.
I think so. I think this is one of those movies kind of like Trail of the White Worm. No.
Lair of the White
Lair
Worm.
of the White Worm. Trail of the White Worm is the Doctor Who episode I keep confusing it with. Lair of the White Worm, where people would watch it and they would be like, how could they take this seriously? It's like it's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke.
Yeah, and like
the movie's called Frankenhooker. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. Like, just because you watch something and it's silly or dumb or whatever doesn't mean the person making it does not know that. And is not doing it intentionally.
Exactly.
So
if there's anything that Frank Henenlotter knows how to do, it's how to be stupid with intent.
But stupid, and it's not like...
No, stupid with intent like The Simpsons is stupid with intent.
Yeah. But it's not stupid like the movies are stupid. Or like...
no. That's just dumb. That's just dumb.
Or like... it's not stupid like that. The things you're seeing are... stupid.
Yes.
But they're stupid in a way that is fun.
Right.
And funny and mildly shocking and
stupid, like when the guy in Airplane goes up and says, I want a ticket, and they're like, smoking or non-smoking? He says smoking, and they hand him a literally smoking ticket.
Yeah.
That's the stupid we're talking about. That's what this movie is.
So we'll get into talking about the plot now.
Yeah, we're going to get right into spoilers, but my God, if anything that we've said has communicated to you tonight if you're vibing with anything we're talking about, do not pass go directly to Tubi and watch fucking Frankenhooker.
Or it's also, if you have a Shudder subscription, it's on there.
Oh, good. You can skip the commercials that way.
Yeah. I will say one last thing to entice you, if you're not sold yet.
Yeah.
At one point, the main character makes a batch of super crack. And that's all you're getting.
That's all you're getting.
For now. So I want to talk a little bit about the structure of Frankenhooker, because it's odd for a movie called Frankenhooker.
Sure.
First off, like I said, I watched this movie about a year ago, and I almost always watch a movie once before I do it for the show, so I have a little bit of an idea of what I'm getting into, whether I like it or not, what the vibe is, etc. So I was a little concerned because I watched so long ago. I was like, well, this is... I don't want to take too dense of notes. I want to. Not a lot happens in Frankenhooker.
No.
Surprisingly, even though it's never boring, it's always very fun to watch. But there's not a lot of incident.
That's very correct.
Which is again, because it's not boring. I know this is also under 90 minutes.
In the tradition of Frankenstein cinema, again, one of my favorite movies, 1931's original Frankenstein, is barely more than an hour.
Wow.
So like they keep it tight. They keep it tight in this time frame, and it I think it stays exactly as long as it needs to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because again, this is essentially just like a Shaggy Dog joke turned into a movie.
Pretty much.
It's like a Norm Macdonald bit that got turned into a movie.
But I'm also going to tell you something right now. The titular Frankenhooker does not come about until like the last 20 minutes-ish.
Yes.
Very little Frankenhooker.
Again, a lot like the structure of the Hammer Frankenstein movies.
Oh, okay.
In which a lot of the movie will be Peter Cushing saying, I really need this, I really need that. Oh my God, I got the right brain, but right at the last second the jar was smashed, or the
dog got into the brain.
The dog ate all my eyeballs. What am I gonna do?
I'd watch that horror film. the dog ate all my eyeballs.
dog
But
ate
it's
all
not
my
like,
eyeballs.
but they just mean their eyeballs.
Oh
like,
no! No, the dog ate an eyeball in my laboratory,
And then
and now
they-
he's got a taste, so he's just eating
Yeah.
everyone's eyeballs.
Yes.
Oh my god. That's somebody get Frank Henenlotter on the phone. But yeah,
You know, we talk about people we want to make one last movie, like Lynch. And,
Yes. Henenlotter's absolutely on that
I
list.
want him to do something.
I loved Basket Case, and now but that was the only Henenlotter I'd seen.
Yeah.
And now I've seen this. I think I can officially count myself as a fan now.
What's a
because
shame
I just
is he
love his style of stuff.
Does not have a huge body of work.
No, he doesn't.
Aside from the Basket Case sequels, which
Mm-hmm.
seem to be kind of hard to find. They don't seem to be on Amazon to rent.
Yeah.
I think there might be a box set. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is.
But other than this,
Mm-hmm.
other than those, all you have left is Brain Damage and Bad Biology. And Bad Biology might be too much for you.
I don't know. We'll have to see. I
But
mean,
Brain Damage is pretty fun.
great. I mean, this is the show meant to traumatize me repeatedly
True.
into a different person. But I will say, by the way, this movie was made back to back with Basket Case 2.
Oh, okay.
Actually, interesting story. He did not want to make this movie. He had no idea to make this movie
Really?
at all. He came into a room with his producer who was going to make a film with him, no matter what it was. He gave him a script that he had an idea for. I think it was called Insect World, which he said in the interview was one of my more crazy ideas. I didn't think anybody would want to make it, but he said he would make anything, so I handed it to him. And the guy said, "No, not this. What else you got?" He had nothing, so he immediately was like, and he improvised the entire plot of Frankenhooker on the spot,
oh, my God.
including the title, which was he gave after did the whole thing like the
And it's
like,
called Frankenhooker.
exactly, and then the guy said, "That's great. What else you got?" And he's like, "Fucking sequel to Basket Case." And they're like, "We'll make those two." And he left, and he turned to his friend who was with him in the room, and he was like, "What did I say?" And the guy had to tell him what he just said.
Oh my
And
God.
he wrote it down, and that became the movie.
That's amazing.
That-
It's amazing to see. It's like God took over his body. It's like,
God-
you need to
God-
spread my new gospel.
God wanted this movie to happen.
Yeah.
And it is amazing to see his works being played out through his prophet.
Frank Henenlotter speaking in tongues.
Just like
Now,
in
actually-
the middle of a service when the pastor starts speaking in tongues, but instead of speaking a language no one can understand, he just starts like describing the plots of various horrible sleaze movies. Like he's just describing the plot of Up.
Well, that's what I want now. Now I want like an Oracle of Delphi, but it's the vapors cause them to come up with plots for exploitation and trash cinema, and it's like, yeah, but my boat's gonna make it.
Oh yeah, well your son's gonna kill you before you have to worry about that. Don't worry about it. But anyway, so she's got bolts in her neck. Yeah.
So this movie is from 1990.
Yes.
The first thing we see is that this movie is presented by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers, the Trauma guys.
The Trauma guy. This is our first Trauma picture.
This technically is. It's a Trauma
Yes.
team release.
Yes, which I mean, Trauma creates their own bag of weird shit that
Yes.
we will eventually cover.
Never seen a Trauma film.
Neither have I. From what I hear, it's a trip. But they also they will gather up other people's weird shit and
Yeah.
release that as well. And they've done it for Frank Henenlotter. They do it for like foreign films and stuff like that. They
Drive My Car was a Trauma release.
I'm sure. But yeah, so this is a big day for us. It's our second Frank Henenlotter, and it's our first ever Trauma, technically.
We begin with our hero, the people's champion, Jeffrey Franken. He's at a table. He is communing with his little pet, which is a eyeball embedded in a brain in a large plastic vat of purple goo. And I love this little monster thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like it will serve no greater point.
No.
And the eyeball is transmitting what it sees to a little television set.
Little television set. And this immediately got me on board with the film.
Oh, yeah.
Just
It's so
immediately
odd and silly, and immediately establishes the vibe of like, okay, yeah, this is going to be par for the course.
And again, it is a sort of a thing of like, it does very much feel like, and I know I don't think you've seen any of these, but in the Hammer Frankenstein movies, you always find Dr. Frankenstein in the middle of some bug nuts insane experiment.
Yeah.
Not quite as bug nuts insane as this, but it's always like, I think in one movie he literally has a brain suspended in liquid connected to two eyes.
Oh.
And he activates it and the eyes start like jerking around, like looking around. He's like, it's alive. I just need to put it in a head now.
What I'm hearing is that this is a better Frankenstein parody than Young Frankenstein.
I mean, I guess we're going to start out with some hot takes, but yeah, I laughed more at this than I laughed at Young Frankenstein. I don't know about you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely about 100 times more.
Apologies to the memory of Gene Wilder, who is still a comedic genius. Neither of us find Young Frankenstein especially funny. But yeah. Oh, and Peter Boyle, who is also a comedic genius.
Yes. But Jeffrey is not happy with the way this eye is performing, so he takes out a scalpel, inserts it into the brain,
yes,
gives it a tap with a hammer. And we get a brilliant reveal that is once more going to establish the vibe of this film. Oh, Jeffrey is interrupted by his girlfriend's mother, who needs him to pass the ketchup. You see that...
Oh my god, it was so good.
You see, Jeffrey has transported this elaborate setup to his girlfriend's house on the day of her father's birthday party. And while everyone is outside, he is inside hammering a scalpel into a brain monster. And his girlfriend Elizabeth's mother is completely chill with it. She is not...
She seems slightly miffed. But
yeah, it seems more like she would be miffed about him taking up space.
That's exactly
than
right.
anything else.
Yes.
Like, she's not upset
like,
about the abomination.
Yeah, she's like, why are you doing this now?
Yes.
Like, it's that kind of energy. And she's got such, like, powerful 50s housewife, sort of like Beaver, like that sort of energy to her. I think she's even wearing a pearl necklace, like,
I'm
while
not sure.
she's
She definitely has
carrying
an apron on.
around. And it's so... And this is where I wrote down my comment I've already made about, like, Frank Henenlotter is known for schlock, he's known for sleaze. He's a legitimately good filmmaker.
Yeah.
And you also see, like, that thing that I was talking about in the Basket Case episode where the acting wasn't so great, but, like, you could tell that he was going for this very arch kind of vibe anyway. Yeah. And now that he's working with a lot of actors that seem a lot more experienced... Mm-hmm. I know the lead was already like kind of an up-and-coming star at the time when he made this.
Went anywhere.
No, he didn't, because actors in Henenlotter movies generally don't.
No.
The acting in this movie is definitely being pushed to that same sort of arch thing. And he's messing with the brain, and then she turns around, Jeffrey, can you pass the ketchup? It's so good. It's
fantastic.
So good.
Like, the tone of this movie is so perfectly sustained throughout, from beginning to end.
Absolutely, it's such a fucking cartoon. We say that all the time, but it's so true in this case.
Also, we see girlfriend mom grab a gigantic bottle of Pepsi, the biggest bottle of Pepsi I've ever seen, and the logo is clearly displayed, and I'm sure Pepsi paid handsomely to get their sody pop into Frankenhooker. Just
as successful, if not more successful product placement than the Reese's Pieces and E.T.
Yep.
Just as proud of this Pepsi is as Reese's Pieces are of the E.T. product placement.
And I want to point something out. Jeffrey is a flawed man in many ways.
Yes.
A real schmuck.
Absolutely a schmuck. Honestly, bizarrely, one of the strongest adaptations of book Victor Frankenstein to cinema in terms of what an absolute weedy bitch he is.
But Jeffrey is very rude to be playing with his eye brain during his fiance's.
Yes.
Not just his girlfriend, it is his fiance.
Yes.
His fiance's father's birthday party.
Yes. No, very rude. Bad table manners. All you aspiring mad scientists out there, don't be like Jeff. Don't be like Jeff.
Listen. There's always time for mad science.
Yes.
People aren't around forever until you figure out the mad science. So maybe nail that mad science first, and then you can bring them back from the dead and have all the time in the world with them.
Yeah, maybe ignore everything we've said up to this point.
Or you know what? Make up your own mind. It's your life.
We're not your dads.
Talk
you
to your
want us to be.
fiance's dad. Don't talk to your fiance's dad. Do mad science. Don't do mad science. It's called free will.
We're not the boss of you.
Jeffrey is played by James Lawrence, who has mostly these days been relegated to extra work.
That's too bad.
And like he was like Teamster number 2 in The Irishman. And he never had a lot of big roles or anything.
That's too bad. He's legitimately good.
I love him as Jeffrey.
I think he's great. He strikes he has to strike an interesting place with his performance. An interesting vibe, I guess.
It's great because he's not like super sleazy, but he has this sort of residual sleaze about him. Not a lot of charisma, but I still enjoy watching Jeffrey just mumble to himself and do dumb shit and be awkward.
I like the detail that he's from Jersey.
Yes.
And Frank Henenlotter is this incredibly New York filmmaker. I consider him as New York a filmmaker as Scorsese. He just has, you can just see in the back of his mind, yeah, I'm going to make the guy who's fucking shit up from Jersey.
The mom tells the girlfriend Elizabeth, fiance Elizabeth, about what Jeffrey's doing, but she mostly seems okay with it again. Mm-hmm. She also tells Elizabeth, ease up on the pretzels.
Yes.
This movie wants us to think, for the 5 minutes she's going to be on screen,
yes,
that Elizabeth is fat. But what I appreciate, and I feel is part of the feminist message of this movie,
sure,
they make no effort to make her appear fat. She is in slightly baggy clothes, but they don't like stuff her with pillows or put her in a fat suit or anything.
Yeah.
We're being told early that like she is being judged solely on her looks and all of this.
And it's also not as much that she's being judged on what she actually looks like.
Yeah.
She is being made to feel
exactly
a certain way. It's not actually... Because Elizabeth... Her name is Elizabeth Shelley, a Two for Frankenstein reference.
Yes.
She's being played by Patty Mullen, who was a penthouse pet, a Playboy model. So she's
very attractive.
A very attractive lady. She's
very slender.
Cast for both her figure and also because she was okay with nudity, and they met with her, and apparently they got all along famously. Yeah, so this is more, I agree with you here. This is more about like the way that women are made to feel about themselves.
And that's going to be that's also the thesis of the movie, is about looks and parts and bodies, not people. I
guess I didn't pick up on that when I was watching it, because that is something that I am aware of that women do go through. So for me, it was sort of like, yeah, that's a thing. And I didn't even think about, oh yeah, you don't actually see that in a lot of like exploitation films.
Yeah.
Exploitation films calling that out.
But Elizabeth is so fat.
Yes.
That Jeffrey even stapled her stomach. She tried diet, she tried all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually Jeffrey stapled her stomach, to which her friend asks, doesn't he work for New Jersey Electric?
I gotta say already, most of my notes are just quotes that I love
That's
from the movie. And this is my first one. It's like, they both have like these very sort of like Marissa Tomei, Harley Quinn accents going back and forth. And as the friend's like, you let him operate on you? Well, of course, we're gonna be married. And then the friend just responds to it with, haha.
Jeffrey's a hobbyist doctor, as we saw in the kitchen.
That's what it was, yeah.
Because that's what doctors do, is make abominations.
And just like Frankenstein from the book, he didn't ever finish his doctorate. He
was kicked out of 3 medical schools.
Very, very Victor Frankenstein energy. Kicked out of 3 medical schools. Never finished his doctorate. He says later that medical school upsets him, which is I cannot tell you, like, again, as a huge Frankenstein fan, as just of the book, of all the movies, it was so weird to have this weedy little Jersey douchebag be one of the best adaptations of the book character.
And it's great because, like, we don't learn specifics about this, but you can picture Jeffrey just sitting in a class, sweating, mumbling, being like, no, we must deviate from God's plan.
Exactly. It's like, why you're telling me all these things, and I don't believe you. So also another thing that is very accurate about Victor Frankenstein in the book, Victor Frankenstein always refers to Elizabeth in the book as an object that he possesses. So again, another point in this adaptation point for this film.
Later, in the moment that made me fall in love with this movie the first time I watched it,
Oh yes,
Elizabeth unveils Jeffrey's present to her dad, a remote-control lawnmower. Unfortunately, as she's demonstrating how it works, she is standing directly in front of it. And believe it or not, tragedy strikes. We see she gets chewed up by this lawnmower.
it's so funny. It's so funny.
Because, again, it's very contrived, but it's contrived on purpose.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey's sitting there being like,
It's that same.
No, don't stand in front of it.
Yeah, it's that same basket case energy of like, this is a horribly stupid thing we're going to do, and we're going to draw so much attention.
Yes.
He's like, no, don't stand in front of it. No, don't stand in front of it. And she's like, and then if you want to start it, you hit this button. No, don't do that. And then if you want it to go forward, you press this button. And then and I thought it was so contrived. I thought this was going to be a fake out, and then she was going to die later because we've just been introduced to this character.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to take her out of the movie that quickly. And then immediately just like cut away and a huge swath of blood flies across. It's so funny. And it is actually less blood than I make it sound.
Yeah, no, it's not horribly
It feels
gruesome.
like a lot of blood, but it's not. It's really not.
It's meant to be a comedy moment, not a horror moment.
Exactly.
Over the credits, we see Jeffrey marking up a diagram of the human body, making a lot of electrical notation, and also making a lot of comments on the physical appearance that he is looking for.
Yes.
He's worried about chicken legs. He's worried about stuff like that.
Moles. He keeps talking about
Yeah.
we need to remove this mole. I will say the very first shot we have of the anatomy graph is of her crotch. Just immediately. Just immediately.
Yep. And of course, this is all done on purpose. Frank Henenlotter wants to finally give women the movie they deserve.
The movie is definitely like told from a male gaze, but it is a movie
It
that
is making commentary on that
is making a
gaze.
commentary on that gaze, but it is definitely a male perspective film. I wrote down like the husband in Next to Normal, Jeff can't resist the urge to build his girlfriend back to his own personal specifications.
I don't know what next to normal is.
A man's wife loses her memory and he decides to build her back with memories that he wishes their relationship included instead of other ones. It's really fucked up.
It's super fucked. Is this a television show?
This is a musical.
Okay.
It is treated as fucked up. This isn't like one of those Dear
Oh,
Evan
okay.
Hansen. This isn't one of those
Okay.
Dear Evan Hansen situations where a really fucked up thing is treated like this is good. No, the dad, the husband in that play is a asshole and a monster. It's my favorite musical of all time.
Okay, now that you said that I was picturing like a romantic thing, like okay, now I'm very curious.
Yeah, I will say this is like a smaller element of the greater show, but it is.
Oh, I was hoping this was the entire show.
I mean, you could definitely do that if you wanted. That sounds like an incredible musical in of itself, but there's a lot of good shit in Next to Normal. Recommended Next to Normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
He seems to be working on something involving Elizabeth. In fact, his walls are covered with pictures of Elizabeth, and he has the eye brain in an aquarium.
Of course, you got to keep your eye brain friend handy.
You gotta, just so he can be in this scene and then never seen again. I assume it's a he. I shouldn't gender
That's
the eye
true.
brain.
That's true. Let's use they them. So it's really not they are really not in the rest of the movie?
Not in any noticeable capacity. Like, it never
it sucks.
comes back into play.
That's true.
They never...
Yeah, they should have come back in the climax. Just like have the I don't want to spoil too much, even though we're in the spoiler section, but have the killing blow be delivered by it. It just like jumps on somebody's head and just sort of like eats it. Suddenly he has teeth out of nowhere.
That, or it stirs up the other things.
It leads the charge.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love it.
Though that would... Again, because we don't know the gender of iBrain.
That's true.
That might undercut the feminist message.
That's very true. That's very true. It's very true.
Jeffrey opens up a copy of Grey's Anatomy, the book, not a DVD set of the television show that wouldn't come out for several decades.
If the movie was made now, I think Frank Henenlotter would have him do that, though.
It reveals a videotape labeled Elizabeth. He plays it. It shows a news report of Elizabeth's death, where she is described as girthful.
Jesus, I didn't catch that. That's so bad. I love that.
We also learned that parts of Elizabeth seem to be missing, particularly the head.
The bit that I love here, the quote that I wrote down, is the newspaper, the TV newscaster says, it refers to Elizabeth as a tossed human salad. A salad that was once called Elizabeth. Which is like a whitest kids you know joke.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And it was nice of Jeffrey to watch this tape just to give us exposition.
Yeah, you think like he's gonna put the tape in it's called Elizabeth, and I'm expecting something like the picnic tape from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Where it's just like some happy memory he has of her, and no, it's just a fucking news report to confirm to him what he already knows. And then the name of the newscast is 8 News Alive. Because, wow.
Jeffrey's mother enters, and here's a weird rabbit hole I went down. Jeffrey's mother is played by Louise Lasser.
Okay.
Who was married to Woody Allen.
I'm sorry.
Was in a couple of his early movies. She was on a television show that sounds pretty fascinating called Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman.
Okay.
Where apparently a lot of odd things happened. It was a Norman Lear show.
Norman Lear, remind me, he's like the great like sitcom creator. He created All in the Family, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
She was also reportedly the first person banned from SNL.
For what reason?
Erratic behavior.
How can you get banned from SNL in the 70s for erratic I assume it was in the 70s, for erratic behavior? That was an era famous for erratic behavior. That's like Dave Mustaine getting kicked out of Metallica.
Let me just double check. It was not very clear.
It sounds like there's a lot of mystery surrounding this person.
Yeah.
I know that our friend of the show, Susan, said, I saw on Facebook that she said that she saw this sitcom she was on. What was it called again?
Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman.
Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman, and that she recommended it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to...
It's on YouTube. My friend Donnie found it because I didn't bother to look beyond seeing if it was streaming on Amazon or anywhere.
Right.
It's on YouTube, so yeah. Yeah, I guess it was basically just she was not pleasant to work with, and again, this is reportedly. Lasser denies it.
Well, I think if someone asks you, are you difficult to work with, the correct answer is always no.
Yeah.
Unless you're Tom Baker, who freely admits that he's a difficult man to work with, and I don't understand.
But Jeffrey's mother wants Jeffrey to move on.
Yes.
She suggests going back to medical school, and here's where we learn that medical school upsets Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. And I wrote...
Which is such a wonderful line.
They're not clear, unless you know differently. I don't think they're clear about how long it's been since the accident.
No.
But it doesn't seem like a lot of time.
It doesn't feel like it, no.
And so I wrote down, hey, Ma, it's been days. Fuck off. I'd
agree, yeah.
It's been like a week. Like, leave the poor guy alone.
But I'm sure she puts up with a lot.
Oh, yeah. And
as the mother of Jeffrey managed to find somebody at all.
Yeah. She is a very... I'd be interested to see, both because you're being a little bit cagey about what's in this Mary Hartman show. So you're just like, there's some odd things that happen. So I'm curious what that means. But also, she's just a very interesting performer. Her delivery, I assumed that because of the weird delivery that she has, I assumed that she was like a sort of John Waters find. Like just sort of some weird person that they knew who they brought on.
It feels a little bit like that because she didn't do a lot after the 70s.
She has this very whispery sort of delivery to her, where she's like, oh, okay, let's do this.
This is from Wikipedia for Mary Hartman and Mary Hartman.
Yeah.
The series follows the titular Mary Hartman, an Ohio housewife, attempting to cope with various bizarre and violent incidents occurring around her.
Jesus.
Yes. And apparently she has a lot of like nervous breakdowns and stuff, which... developed by Lear with the intention of examining the effects of consumerism on the American housewife.
Norman Lear was a kind of a weird dude. He made some shows that once we finally figure out how to do fucking TV on for the show, we need to explore some of his stuff, because there are the big things that he made. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of like little failed experiments that he made where he was like trying to fuck with the TV formula that I would be fascinated to check out.
Mom coos at the eyebrain before asking what it is. Actually, she refers to it as a he.
Oh, she does.
But
Okay.
she doesn't know what it is.
That's
what
true.
They are.
What they are.
And Jeffrey says he's not sure. Goodbye, eyebrain. Thanks for being in the movie.
Thanks for being in the movie. You were my favorite character. Goodbye.
Jeffrey talks about how he's dissociating with reality more and more, how he's lost his ability to distinguish right from wrong, and he's scared of what he's becoming.
Again, it very much sounds like a monologue from the book.
And his mother asks if he wants a sandwich.
That's right! She's
We got some egg salad left over.
You want a sandwich?
He-
It's like a parent from Crybaby.
yeah. And just this...
This movie does actually, now that I've said that, this movie really feels like it's in that same universe as Crybaby, which is like the way that everyone acts in this,
I could see it,
world.
yeah.
Like Crybaby's happening in the American South while this is happening in New York and New Jersey.
Well, Crybaby was in Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Where's Baltimore?
Maryland?
Cool. I'm realizing I don't know anything about geography.
I'll find you a placemat with a map of the United States
I
on it.
appreciate it. Yeah.
I love James Lawrence's performance. He's just the perfect creep.
He's
perfect,
so, yeah, absolutely.
And again, this monologue is so on the nose. It's hilarious, where he's just like, all this character exposition, instead of showing us throughout the time, it's just like, yeah, I'm going crazy, Mom. I'm a crazy man now. I don't know is it okay to punch a dog? I don't know. Is it okay to take a bite out of the Pope? I don't know.
I don't know, Ma. I don't know. He's also got this they've updated his makeup so that he throughout the rest of this movie, he has this very sort of Tim Burton protagonist, pale, like dark shadows around his eyes, kind of like crazy look to him, which is great. It absolutely adds.
That's just what I assume people from New Jersey look like.
He looked better in the opening because they kept bringing him to his girlfriend's house in New York, so he was looking better. But now that he's back on the island, he's looking horrible.
At night, Jeffrey fetches something from the trunk of his car and goes to the garage. It is a comically large spark plug. Also, the garage is a mad scientist lab.
Yes, of course.
It has a table with restraints, a giant turbine.
It is very much. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it gave me it felt like the design concept was if Dr. Frankenstein wasn't in a castle but it had to be in somebody's garage.
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
How would you adjust it? So everything is the stuff that's from the old Universal sets with all the absolutely pointless things that just make sparks and don't do anything else, but they all like have rust on them. They look, it's kind of like the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. It's that sort of used future aesthetic, but you know, even grungier and shittier, which is great and really funny.
Jeffrey opens up a big freezer chest, which holds a bubbling purple liquid that we will later learn is an estrogen serum.
Of course.
How did he make it? Why did he make it? Who knows? Doesn't matter.
Of course estrogen is purple. Mm-hmm. Of course. In this movie's logic, that makes perfect sense.
He pulls out Elizabeth's head, and they have a nice romantic pizza dinner.
Jesus.
Also invited to the dinner was a hand, one of her feet, and some miscellaneous viscera
Just some
that are just
miscellaneous
on the
stuff.
table.
Yeah.
He has her drink some wine. He drinks some wine. It all comes out the neck.
It's a great detail. I love that Frank Henenlotter had to say to some prop meister, I need a head that I can pour wine into and it will come out the neck.
And again, like...
And apparently, that was another thing I learned about behind the scenes. Frank Henenlotter, because he had to do all of the effects himself for Basket Case, was very hands-on, not in a invasive way, but in a sort of like, how can we do this? How can we do this? What can we do? What can we do? And apparently came up with some shit that even the professional special effects guy who was working on that was like, that's fucking brilliant. Because he'd been in that trench before.
But again, it's so strange, but the movie isn't like calling attention to it. It never goes like, hey, we're being weird. Look how weird we're being. Isn't this weird?
Yeah.
Everything feels like, no, of course he has dinner with the head.
It's that difference between of humor styling between parody and camp.
Yeah.
Where as if we were watching a maybe not Young Frankenstein, but like another Mel Brooks movie or a Zucker Brothers movie, and this scene were taking place, you'd have him like pouring the wine into her neck, and the music would be like, whoop, whoop, bo, 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 like one of those things. But instead, the music is like playing this as if this was the most important, powerful, dramatic scene. That's why I reference Crybaby. It's that sort of vibe of like, we are taking the stupidest shit in the world so fucking seriously.
And also, like, it sort of underscores how disturbing this behavior actually is.
Right, yeah. It's
hilarious, but it's also, if this were played even slightly different, this would be horrifying.
It's a sort of thing of like, you can take this, and I don't remember who said this, but they were saying about horror comedies, is taking a concept that you can only have two reactions to laugh or to scream.
Yes.
And just choosing which one that is, that you're going to elicit in your audience.
Jeffrey boasts about how he's going to give Elizabeth a brand new body, and here we get more of this female body image stuff, male gaze stuff, because all of Jeffrey's suggestions are very slender, very busty women that have Elizabeth's head plastered onto him.
It's clearly like he's clearly just taken like a bunch of centerfolds from like just some dirty magazines, and he's just like taped her photograph to the photograph of her head to the bodies. And again, you're absolutely right, and I didn't pick up on this because I was just thinking like, yeah, this is a movie where there's going to be a lot of nudity. It's called Frankenhooker. I get it, but you're right. Like the movie is he
even says he's going to make her the centerfold goddess of the century.
And in the context of the movie, with the character, the way he's been established, he really thinks that this is something she would be excited about.
I don't think he even cares about what she's excited about.
Oh, yeah, but I think that the way that he rationalizes it in his head...
Gotcha.
With the way that he's so entrenched in that male gaze, he's like, oh, yeah, this is what you care about. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing with, like, everyone kept telling her, don't watch the pretzels, staple the tummy, all that stuff was like, this is like... Of course she would like this. Mm-hmm. Of course she would. She always cared about her body, when really, no, you guys all making her feel like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like Jeffrey can ask, so he just supplants his fantasies for hers.
Right, yeah.
And also,
even just this thing of like him taking the severed head out and having dinner with it, it's all for him. She's getting nothing out of it. She's fucking dead.
Just like showing her these pictures. Yeah. She can't see them.
Right.
Like he's just... showing her these creepy fucking paste-em-ups he made.
Yeah, it's not even like talking to a coma victim at this point. She's fucking dead.
But it also, again, we're going back and forth with like... Because of the tone of the movie, we're not really processing how fucking insane Jeffrey is.
Right, yeah.
But it's also like... like you're saying, he thinks that this is all super romantic and super cool.
I'm a good boyfriend.
Because he's written a poem.
That's right, he wrote a poem.
I'm not even going to quote anything from the poem. You should experience it yourself.
You really should.
It is something else.
Even though this is the spoiler section, we can't spoil everything.
Like, it's just... I listened to it and I was like... If I quote one line, I should quote them all. And that's too much effort.
That's too much stuff.
So it's a trip.
Just go in. Just go in and just absorb it. Absorb it. Just close your eyes and let his mellifluous tones carry you away.
Before submerging the head back into, or submerging the parts back into the serum, he puts the poem into the hands of one of the hands. And again, another deeply useless and empty gesture.
Complete with the fact that he's putting her, like, even if he wanted, like, I'll put this aside for you or something, he's putting it in the hand. She's going into the estrogen. I have to imagine at least there's some sort of H2O content in that.
No, it's going to turn into a soggy, pulpy mess.
It's going to turn into nothing. This was entirely for you, dude. This had nothing to do with her.
So Jeffrey goes over the diagram again, and we learn that someone will have to die so that Elizabeth can live.
It's pushing Daisy's rules. Someone has to die so she can come back.
What makes it worse is the big electrical storm that he needs is coming in 2 days. He needs to find parts in 2 days. He has to get radical. Also, he knows that he needs to get the parts in 2 days because of the helpful weatherman, who is Zachary. Yeah.
Do you know Zachary? Famous TV horror host.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, like Elvira and everything like that.
Don't talk about Elvira.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But yeah, Zacherley's famous, is sort of infamous in sort of the horror host scenes, like just like this weird, creepy-looking older man who's like always doing this. Oh, there's a thunderstorm coming, so if you have any mad science you have to do it in the next 2 days. Like it's beautiful. I love
a wonderful little bit.
Campy horror host cameos,
and I love the bit we're about to get.
Oh my God! This is one of the weirdest things. Even we're watching the behind the scenes, and even the actor playing this character is like, I still have no idea what this is about.
And it's sort of this thing where you're talking about not noticing like the feminist aspects because you're like, okay, this is what would happen in a movie like this. As bizarre as what's about to happen is, there's no point where I'm not like, yeah, of course he's doing this.
No, this isn't one of those things where you're like, yeah, of course. No, this is one of those things where it's like, I guess we should probably just say what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah. Before Jeffrey gives the great line, some people need drugs, some people need booze. I just need a little surgical assistance. And he revs a drill, says he's having cluster headaches, and he drills into his head to help him think.
First, he checks a little model of the human brain to make sure that he's choosing the right spot.
Yes.
And then he just fucking drills in. First, I have to get this reference out of the way. Egon, remember that time you tried to put a drill through your own head? That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me. But now that we've done that, what the fuck?
But, okay, apparently we disagree, because I was like, this feels natural to the movie. Like, this feels natural to the character. This feels...
I think if the character does it, it is what the character would do.
True.
That's fine. Like, I don't question that this is what he would do. But, like, what a bananas choice.
It is
what
bananas.
An absolutely bananas choice.
But it's the perfect choice.
No argument there. But it didn't... I wasn't watching this movie and this happened and thinking, well, of course. No, okay. I was looking at that and being like, what?
I guess it's also partly because I think Frank Henenlotter...
You've seen a lot of movies with people drilling into their own heads. You're like, this is passé.
One of my favorite songs is called Trepanation.
Okay, is this
and this is where I think this scene is coming from.
Okay.
I think Frank Henenlotter misunderstood what trepanation is.
Okay.
You know what trepanation is?
I don't know.
Trepanation it's mostly an ancient practice. Some people still do it, but you bore a hole into the skull.
Oh, I think I was hearing about this recently, actually. Yeah. Were we talking about this, or was this...
Possibly.
I don't know.
But it might have been done to be like release demons or do something, but obviously it's fallen out of practice.
On an episode of QI, they were talking about this. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that's where this is coming from, and Andrew Bird has a hilarious song called Trepanation, which is about a trepanation singles club, and that is frequently in my head, so I'm like, the concept of people drilling into their skulls is never that far from my mind.
So this was sort of like if we had a guy who was really stressed and would just be like, oh man, I really gotta unwind, and would like reach into a vial and just like slap a bunch of leeches on his face and then keep going.
Sure.
Gotta get rid of these bad humors.
I think that's part of it. I think that, or Frank Henenlotter perfectly understood what trepanation is and was like, let's take it a step further.
I think it's probably more that. Like, I think he was probably like, hey, what would be a fucked up thing for this character to do to unwind? I'm already doing super crack later. I don't want to tip my hand too much. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And I love the way Frank Henenlotter's mind works.
It's wonderful. And I love the way Jeffrey's mind works because it requires a drill to help it go. And his first thought of who he can collect to get these parts is stewardesses, flight attendants. No good. That won't work.
Won't work.
So he drills into his skull again, goes back in, and he has a revelation. He should target sex workers. Mm-hmm. And because, unfortunately, police don't care about sex workers.
No, they don't.
The populace mostly does not care about sex workers.
No, they don't. Like, even the fact that just like, I mean, we both love the movie Dirty Work.
Yes.
But the fact that it is such an easy punchline to say, dead hooker,
Yeah.
sucks about as much as how easy it is, what an easy punchline it is to say prison rape.
Yes, exactly.
It's one of those things that we have all decided to just be okay with, and we really shouldn't.
Yeah, you're right.
Still love Dirty Work.
Still love Dirty Work.
I'm only bringing it up because it has both of those jokes in it.
I feel like it handles them better than other films.
It is two of the best examples of those jokes, like the best prison rape joke and the best dead hooker joke. But still, the other thing that he says in this, which I think is telling and helps to support your argument. I love how I started out this being like, you're going to have to hard sell me, and I'm already immediately on board. He says that the hookers sell their bodies, and somehow he connects that with the idea that because they're selling their bodies, that means that if I pay the price, I have the right to do whatever I want with those bodies.
Including killing and dismembering them.
Killing. Despite the fact that, like, if you are a prostitute, you are giving consent with caveats to very specific acts.
Yes.
Like, that's not... No, Jeffrey, no.
And
bad, Jeffrey, bad.
And it's clear that that is not something Frank Henenlotter agrees, because he's putting those words into the mouth of a shithead. Absolute
shithead. And also, something that I noticed watching this movie, and absolutely noticed when we watched Basket Case. In Henenlotter's movies, the best people are prostitutes.
Yes.
I almost said the H word, which outside of the context of the movie, I probably should avoid.
I don't even know that the word prostitute is the best anymore.
Really?
I'm not sure.
I guess people do kind of just say sex worker now.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something there.
But I don't know. This is not an argument for us, since neither of us lived that life or connected with anybody in that life.
True.
Let's just stick with sex worker for the sake of argument.
We'll stick with sex worker just to be safe. But yeah, what was I saying? But yeah, all the best characters in his movie, like fucking Casey,
who's going to pop up here soon.
Going to pop up like she does in most of his movies. It was a sex worker, and she was, as we mentioned several times during that episode, the best person in the world.
Absolutely.
And the best character in that movie. And all of the sex workers in this movie, no matter how wild and crazy they get, are depicted as being the most fun people to be around.
So Jeffrey goes cruising for victims. And of course you're not going to find these sorts of ladies in New Jersey.
No.
You got to go across the bridge to New York City. The hellscape that is New York City.
Once again, we had to, like Basket Case, Frank Henenlotter doing the Lord's work and like capturing that pre-Giuliani New York City.
Super sleazy.
That super
sleazy
thing.
That's what might have killed Frank Henenlotter, is like seeing New York cleaned up, that sort of
like what
dwindled his creative juices and his energy.
My muse.
This used to be all prostitutes.
It's like the opposite of that speech you get in a lot of drama films. It's like, this used to be a nice neighborhood. He's like, this used to be a nice neighborhood. You could get a handy on every corner.
But he meets one very eager lady, but he says he needs more. He needs like 6 or 7. That can be arranged.
Yes.
But he's going to have to talk to Zorro. And you must have gotten very excited. You love Zorro.
I am a big Zorro fan. I grew up watching the Disney Zorro live-action show where every Hispanic character was played by a white guy, and I didn't realize that when I was a kid. But, I love Zorro, and I honestly, I didn't get excited at first because I honestly
you didn't expect it to be the gay Blade himself?
I didn't, but I also really thought I'd misheard because I was like, there's no way that she just said we have to talk to Zorro. No. She must have said something else. She must have said Zulu or Zara, something.
Now, normally I would make a joke like, do you think this movie would be better if it actually were Zorro? But I don't even want to make that joke because this movie's perfect.
This movie is like as close to a perfect movie as you can get.
For a movie called Frankenhooker.
For a movie, this is the perfect encapsulation of the title Frankenhooker.
Yes.
It's a lot of movies. Frankenhooker did not do very well when it was released financially. No. It made a lot more money when it was released in video stores.
Oh, I 100% believe it.
Frank Henenlotter says that he thinks that that's entirely because the producer had a gimmick box which had a button that you like a greeting card.
Yeah.
You could press it and it would say, "Want a date?" It would light up and say, "Want a date?" And he thought that was the reason why it went well. I think that he's underselling how perfect for the video market of this era the title Frankenhooker is.
And the box art, I assume it's the same as the image you see like when you get it streaming.
Yes.
Of just Elizabeth as her
Frankenhooker self.
And
I will say, and also like, I only bring this up now because the video rental experience for a lot of people seems to be an element of like looking for crazy titles and crazy box art.
It was.
And
like
most of it is taking it home, putting the tape in, and being disappointed by what happens after that. And because it doesn't match up to how great the box art is. Frankenhooker is exactly as good as the title Frankenhooker is.
Yes.
And that is why I call it perfect.
As long as you are understanding what it is. Like if you rent Frankenhooker and like, I'm going to get a sublime horror experience that will not be seen again until the golden age of horror that will happen.
What's wrong with you if you think that?
Or even if you like somehow don't get the joke or like, this isn't scary and like...
Sure. Yeah, no, I can see that.
It's like, because there are those people. There are those people who are like, this isn't scary. I'm like, it's not supposed to be.
As much, and to your original point, as much as I like the idea of imagining Don De La Vega with any of the actors who've played him over the years as a pimp, Zorro the pimp in this movie is amazing.
Oh, he's great. He's for as little as he has to do.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just to talk about the video rental experience, I was a huge scaredy cat as a kid. Like I could not
something we have in common.
Take it like even in the slightest. Even the idea that we were going to watch a scary movie would send me into tears.
Do you think that we do shit like this now as like a sort of like rebellion against our past selves?
Maybe.
Because we were both such weird scaredy cats, like just like terrified of stuff in movies, and now we literally go out of our way to try and blow our hair back every week on the show, or however often we do this.
Maybe. I think I just learned, like, the movie can't hurt me.
That is a big thing when you learn that.
Like, I guess seeing more fucked up, like, violent shit made it easier for me to go, like, okay, horror is just a different kind of violence.
Sure.
So I can sort of groove with that.
You get used to seeing, like, action movie violence, and you're like, oh, well, this is just, like, the same stuff that I liked in the other thing. I was just having a moment where I started reading this book that's one of my wife Kaylee's favorites, and she's always talked about how much she loves it, and she's like, oh, I don't think you should read this. I just don't think you like it. The characters are really unlikable. I was like, I literally said, I just watched a movie where the main character sold a woman into sex slavery within the first, like, 20 minutes. I think I'll be fine. And she's like, okay, there's nothing that bad. And I read the book. I'm like, it's great. The characters are awesome. She's like, that's right. I keep thinking about you as old Billy.
Again, the video rental thing.
Oh, sorry.
Got sidetracked.
Sorry.
Even though as a scaredy cat, I would roam around the video store and I would see horror titles, and they would stick in my mind. I think Frankenhooker might have been one of them, but the one I'll always remember is Demon Toys from Full Moon Features.
Oh yeah,
and I think
Demonic Toys.
Demonic Toys
title.
I think Full Moon lived and died by those video cassette cases.
Oh God, yes, absolutely. The poster for Subspecies is so much better than Subspecies.
Subspecies is not the worst movie.
No, it's not the worst movie, but the poster is way better than the movie. I didn't have the video rental store experience growing up, but I did have my dad's VHS tape collection, and I did the same thing. I would go to the movies that I knew I couldn't watch, and I would just like obsess over the box art for all of them. And for some reason, I decided that my favorite was Under Siege. And the minute I was told that I could watch rated R movies unsupervised, I ran up and put in Under Siege and was immediately disappointed.
Of course.
Yeah.
Jeffrey is taken to a strip club called Huevos Grandes, which means big balls.
Of course it does.
Technically it means big eggs, but You know, those south of the border folks, they call their balls huevos.
Okay.
Jeffrey is taken through a Skid Row hellscape, past like just all these sleaze bags, and he's taken into a bathroom where a three-way's going on with a door to the stall that doesn't close.
Just keeps opening and closing and opening and closing. It looks, honestly, the action of the door opening and closing and them and what they're doing in there is so repetitive. It feels like he's passing by a bunch of NPCs. He's just like going by and is like, okay, well, that's their looping action.
So here's the interesting thing. Like, we're meant to see these people as like monsters and like, oh, Jeffrey's going into like a literal hell.
Into the bowels
Jeffrey
of hell.
is planning on killing a bunch of sex workers and stealing their parts. He kisses the severed head of his fiance. He has embedded presumably a human eye that he got somewhere. Into presumably a human brain that he got somewhere. I love the juxtaposition of like, this is because we're going to find out Jeffrey is bizarrely conservative. He has one line that I was like, flipped a switch for the character for me. That was like, oh, interesting.
Yes, I think I know which line you're talking about.
We'll get to it shortly.
We will get to it.
But so like, even though Jeffrey wants to turn Elizabeth into the sex pot, this world is so wrong and hellish to him.
Well, I mean, if we're talking conservative, that is the whole conservative vibe, isn't it? It's saying one thing and thinking another, especially when it comes to women's bodies.
And the cognitive dissonance of like, I can do all this horrible shit, but this horrible shit is too much.
If you are if there's pleasure happening that doesn't involve me, it's wrong.
Yes.
If I want something, then I should have it.
But in this bathroom is Zorro the pimp, who is also a drug dealer.
And he's played by some fucking bodybuilder. Like, he's just a gigantic human being.
Yep. He's a big old burly man.
Yeah.
Not burly. He's not like barrel-chested. He's just like a bodybuilder.
Like a bodybuilder. No,
like someone who would be a jobber against Jean-Claude Van Damme in a movie.
That's exactly, very like Arnold Schwarzenegger stunt double kind of shit going on, except with a big mustache.
Zorro tells Jeffrey he can get him some girls, and maybe even some crack.
Zorro is a very even-handed sort of pimp character. A lot of pimps in movies tend to be like these over-the-top sort of Batman villain-esque crazy people. And he's just sort of this very... Part of it is because I think they literally got a bodybuilder. I don't think this guy's an actor. Like, so his performance is very understated, and that's sort of like... I memorize my lines.
And he's not dressed ostentatiously like a lot of cartoon pimps.
He comes over, he's just sort of like a very sort of reasonable guy. The only hint that you get that maybe this guy's a total psychopath is, well, despite, on top of the fact that we just had this sort of journey through Jeffrey's idea of hell to get to him, but also the fact that he apparently brands all of his girls. Yeah, which is like a, horrifying thing. He has like... is just like Zorro is famous for like marking his territory with a Z, is like it's like almost a cattle brand of like a circle and a Z on all of his girls on their like forearms. And but even though that horrifying thing is happening, he just takes Jeffrey and says, "Oh yeah, I can get you some crack. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do some business."
Next, we see a TV program, and here we get our Beverly Bonner cameo, who is Casey in Basket Case, and she's arguing for the legalization of prostitution because it would help the women. A lot of them are being controlled by drugs, specifically crack. And
she's playing Casey, and I like to imagine that her character's name is Casey, and I like to imagine that this is Casey, who in her older age is like advocating for the girls that are still on the streets.
I think that's a fair headcanon.
I think that's probably the headcanon that the actress had. Again, this actress continued to play Casey not only in Henenlotter stuff, but in her own stuff that she wrote for the character afterwards.
And again, this is a very progressive ideal that Frank Henenlotter is giving time to in his movie.
I was genuinely shocked to see it mentioned at all in this film.
And she is juxtaposed with a very loud, conservative type who...
as the host of the show, who's just like absolutely Glenn beckoning it up in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Casey's the reasonable one, and she's the right one, and
if you don't, we know that no matter what else is going on in the movie, if Casey's saying something in that movie, Henenlotter's on Casey's side.
Exactly.
Because Casey's the fucking best.
And Jeffrey, reasonable man that he is, agrees that crack is killing sex workers. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, he's made some super crack.
To kill
that
them
will
faster.
kill them more efficiently.
Yeah.
And again, he's justifying in his mind. He's like, "Oh, it's killing them already. I might as well just do it faster."
Yeah. There's a lot of self-justification going on with Jeffrey throughout this whole movie. I will point out the super crack came about at almost the last minute for this movie.
Really? It's one of my favorite elements.
It was not part of the original pitch for the movie that he made up on the spot. The idea came because he couldn't think of a way for Jeffrey to kill the prostitutes, because he was like, I want the audience to kind of sympathize with him throughout this film. I don't want, if I have him pull out a meat cleaver and chop these girls up, no one's going to be on his side for anything going forward. So what's something funnier? And for some reason, they landed on super crack.
Well, it's hilarious.
It is one of the best things, and it became Frank Henenlotter's favorite thing. Well, a certain thing about it became Frank Henenlotter's favorite thing about this movie later on.
Back on the TV program, we see footage of Zorro harassing one of his girls. The woman calls out Jeffrey's name. I'm not sure if we're supposed to think this is Elizabeth, or if Jeffrey is hallucinating, or what is going on.
Yeah, I was confused by that scene as well.
Either way, Jeffrey flips out.
Right.
And you know what's good for a flip out? Mm-hmm. A drill. Good old drill sesh.
Time to run some drills.
Do some burpees. There's nothing that should be a part of every high school football program. Like,
sure,
you do the tackling, you do the sled thing, you run some laps, you do some suicide drills, and then you trepane yourself.
I mean, they're destroying their brains anyway with all the concussions that they have, so why not?
That's some real Jeffrey Franken thinking right there.
Oh no, I've become that which I hate.
That's the pitch I'm going to make to the school board.
I don't think I want to be a part of this anymore.
Well, your name's already on the PowerPoint presentation.
Ah, damn it. Well, you can't change a PowerPoint presentation.
I've already saved it.
Can't do anything after that.
It starts out, trepaning is an ancient practice, and do we really know better than our ancestors?
What'd you just say?
Trepaning is an ancient practice, and do we really know better than our ancestors?
According to my coworker who was explaining homeopathy to me during my entire shift just recently, no, we don't.
Exactly.
Yes.
So try trepaning today.
This is our first sponsored episode.
Yeah. The concept of trepaning. Just no group.
We've sold out to big trepaning.
How do we sell drills to people?
Just like how mouthwash was originally a floor cleaner, and they're like,
it?
Yeah, nobody's buying this. How can we get people to buy this? I know, we'll invent the concept of halitosis. Whole cloth doesn't really exist, and then we'll just get people to put our floor cleaner in their mouths, and that's why we have mouthwash. They haven't changed the formula. It's the same shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is I can use mouthwash to clean my floor.
You probably can. It'll be just as effective as cleaning your mouth.
What a world.
What a nightmare. Anyway, Frank Henenlotter.
After a good drill sesh, he rationalizes that he's not killing anybody. The crack is.
Right. And
and it already is. He's just going to leave a lethal form of crack in their presence.
And it's up to them. He's not making them partake.
Nope.
He's not making them partake. It's up to them.
He tests the super crack on a literal guinea pig.
That's right.
And we'll find out what super crack does. Is it makes you explode. There's never any attempt for Jeffrey to explain the science. It just makes people explode. It just makes anything explode. Like any living thing explode.
Obvious. There's no reason to explain it. It just makes sense.
I wish there... Do you think, like, if Jeffrey were to make a super version of every drug, the end result would always be explosion, or do you think it would be different? Like, if he made super cocaine, do you think maybe that'd turn someone into a giant man?
this is a moment where sheltered Billy from the compound needs to ask a question that maybe he should already know. I thought crack was cocaine.
Crack basically is cocaine, from what I
Okay.
understand. We were always led to believe it was much worse and different.
Okay.
But the way it was explained to me once is that crack is just
A different form?
a different form.
Okay.
It's sort of, I guess, mixed with other shit, and I don't really know.
Sure. It would be really funny, though, like, again, because crack is, I assume, an accelerant.
It's an amphetamine.
An amphetamine, right. So it'd be really funny if he was like, oh, an amphetamine that makes people explode. That I guess it makes some sort of sense. What happens if I make a super pot and then they just explode anyway? They're like really, really feeling incredibly mellow, and they're like, yeah.
Well, as we're
And
about
boom!
as we're about to see, the super crack seems pretty good. Like, they seem to be having a hell of a time.
yeah, absolutely. It's a good time before you blow up.
Jeffrey goes to meet with all the ladies he hired. He's dressed as a cartoon doctor.
Complete with like the full like
The reflector
the
thing.
reflective CD they always have taped to their heads.
He examines and measures the ladies thoroughly.
Before he does that, the first prostitute that he met, the first sex worker that he met on the street that first day, introduces him as, this here's Jersey Boy, Dr. Jersey Boy, which sounds like a joke we would make.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's measuring the girls. He's
And
he's
again,
inspecting them.
it's a meat market. Like, he's literally just looking at their parts and building his ideal woman.
There's again a great interplay between the sex workers in the scene. They're all telling these jokes. They're like, oh, let me see your thermometer, doc, and all this stuff. Again, Henenlotter depicts sex workers as the most fun people you've ever met.
Sure.
They're the most alive people that we've met in the movie so far. There's one line that I wrote down for some reason. At one point, he's inspecting a woman's nipples, and he says, nice buoyancy.
Yes.
But yeah,
However, Jeffrey Franken,
the
the people's champion, God's own chosen,
God.
he can't go through with his plans. He's
Yes.
too good. He's too pure.
This is a one thing where I was like, like as in terms of the writing of the movie, like and this is more a trend that annoys me in film in general, when a movie sets out to have a sort of a fucked up or questionable protagonist, and then like at the last second is like, but we can't let him actually do a bad thing. Kind of
Yeah.
like Night of the Beast.
Sure.
Like at the end where we didn't actually get to see the main
priest kill the
character
baby.
kill a baby, which you understand like why they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Again, Frank Henenlotter's quote about like, I can't have him pull out a meat cleaver, and then I am very happy that Super Crack is in this movie. I
Yes.
cannot tell you how happy I am that Super Crack is in this movie. There was a moment, if I'm going to pick at anything in this movie, there was a moment in the back of my head when this scene happened, and he's like, oh, I just can't go through with it, where I was like, oh, come on.
Kill him. Kill him
Sure
all.
you can. Sure you can.
I believe in you. Why don't you believe in yourself?
Exactly.
He just can't choose whether he should do it or not. The ladies just want paid.
The ladies start to worry. They have been informed that he's going to inspect them and then choose one for whatever his purposes are. Apparently, he's told them a story about his brother who's sick or something
Yes.
like that. And they're, with the talking out loud to himself that he's doing, they're starting to get a sense that maybe he's going to back out on their deal.
Yeah.
And they're starting to get upset because there's been a lot of poking and prodding today.
Yes.
And they just want to get fucking paid.
He tosses them the bag with the money in, which they take out, but check off Super Crack. It's in there. They find it. I'm going to propose a scenario to you.
Go for it.
Anton Chekhov goes to hell,
Okay.
but he ends up in heaven.
Oh.
Once, because in hell they get everything ever made.
Okay.
Hell has all the channels.
Okay.
So Chekhov watches Frankenhooker. Mm-hmm. And he is introduced to the concept of Super Crack.
Sure.
And that caused him to ascend into heaven.
Now, is it him knowing about Super Crack that makes
Yes.
him go to heaven?
There
Just
was a
that knowledge.
master writer and drama,
Okay.
Anton Chekhov. Yeah, do you think that's possible?
So he just sees Frankenhooker because hell has all the channels.
Yes.
He sees Frankenhooker, and the knowledge of Supercrack enters his mind, and he's like, yeah, Jesus did die for my sins. And he just sort of like teleports up into heaven. I
assume that would be a similar story for a lot of people in hell.
Right.
But because I brought up
Chekhov, using him as an object lesson, as an example here.
And through Supercrack, we can all escape hell.
I think this is absolutely possible. I think that Frankenhooker and Supercrack specifically is the missing ingredient in C.S. Lewis's classic, The Great Divorce. If only all those people on the bus who got to visit heaven from hell in that story had seen Frankenhooker and known of the concept of Supercrack, all of their petty grievances would have fallen away, and they would have entered the kingdom of heaven.
I'm going to name some other people in hell.
Okay.
And you tell me if the concept of Supercrack would
work
save
for them.
Yes.
I mean, it's a pretty universal thing, so let's see.
Stan Lee.
See, the problem is, I think he already knew about it.
You think he already knew about Supercrack?
I think he may have invented it.
Jack! What if there was a way to process cocaine? I don't know why I'm doing Peter Falk for Stan Lee.
Because every voice we do on the show is Peter Falk. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's either Peter, as we learned in the Basket Case episode, it's either Peter Falk or James Mason. Those are our two voices.
Those are my two voices. You have a better range.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, true believer. Supercrack. Excelsior. There, I found it.
Yeah.
It's very Peter Falky, but it's just in a higher register.
Yeah, more energy because of the Supercrack.
Because I smoked Supercrack every day and I exploded, and the forces of the cosmos brought me back together so I can tell you this story of a love triangle. Originally,
Silver Surfer didn't get his powers from the power cosmic. It was Supercrack.
Yeah.
And some absolute fool, crossed that out and replaced it with the power cosmic.
What the fuck is crack? That won't be invented for several years. Okay, John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes Booth. I think that the knowledge of Supercrack would make John Wilkes Booth cry, and just knowing about something so beautiful would immediately make him understand all the harm he had wrought with his backwards beliefs, and I believe he would ascend to heaven.
Okay.
Yeah.
King Herod.
King Herod. That's
the version of the King Herod that massacred all the babies.
The version of the king, specifically the version of the King Herod that massacred all them babies. Ooh, that's rough. I think he would have to watch Frankenhooker, know about Supercrack, understand Supercrack, absorb Supercrack into his heart, and then maybe watch the 3 Basket Case movies as well before he could get into, I'm going to say, purgatory.
Okay.
But that's a lot of dead babies.
That's a lot of dead babies.
It's a lot of dead babies. I don't know if he would go directly to heaven, but at least to purgatory based on those 4 movies.
And the worst thing about all those dead babies,
he
didn't even get the baby he was trying to get. It was all for nothing. Except that baby went on to die for people's sins.
He quite factually did not manage to get the one baby he was aiming for.
Oh, hates that savior! Jesus foiling him at every turn.
Famously, King Herod, the inspiration for what's the character's name?
Yosemite Sam.
King Herod, famously the inspiration for Yosemite Sam.
There's gonna be a census, you varmint!
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. You were talking about Jesus Christ.
The ladies pin Jeffrey down and smoke the Supercrack. They're having a grand old time. They put on some music, and here's the line. Jeffrey calls it the devil's music.
He has 2 lines during this bit. This is actually not the bit that I thought I was remembering.
The just say no thing?
No, I misremembered a different thing. Never mind.
Okay.
But so he says, "No, not the music. It's the devil's music. It'll give you the wrong ideas."
So this tells us so much about Jeffrey. What a weird conservative square he is. Who again?
Oh no, I got the line wrong. It's so much better. No, not the devil's music. Turn it off. It's a deadly mixture.
Presumably Jeffrey somehow knows that jams will intensify the Supercrack. That's what it sounds like. but he still calls it the devil's music.
Here's what I say. Here's the line that actually made me hate Jeffrey.
Okay.
It's not that line, because that line I just laughed at. I thought
it's a funny line,
really
but
funny.
for me it informed a lot about Jeffrey's character.
It absolutely did. I didn't pick up on that element of Jeffrey's character until a couple lines later. All of the sex workers immediately start getting
I know what you're talking
undressed.
about. Hold on.
They immediately start getting undressed.
They're
and they're all
dancing,
jumping
they're
around.
smoking crack.
Yep.
Jeffrey keeps pleading for them to stop. Mm-hmm. He says there's programs they could check into. Although presumably it's too late. Like presumably
there's programs. Yeah, he's just yelling all this stuff, and all of it is gold. I will say, right before we get to it, there is a woman who, again, they're all like just taking their tops off. Mm-hmm. Again, this is Frank Henenlotter in the documentary referred to this movie as softcore, which, having come from watching Up
and
I have
true softcore,
whole new definition of what softcore is.
Yeah.
One of the women. There's this trick that a lot of men do, especially bodybuilders, like Terry Crews is famous for doing this, peck popping.
Yes.
Which I have never seen a woman do.
Oh, I didn't notice this.
And
Maybe I was thinking
there's an actual, there's like a woman who's just like, and she's not even like small chested. She's got she's got boobs, and she's like fully flexing her boobs. And I was like, I've never seen that before. That's legitimately incredibly impressive.
I'll need to go back and watch it.
I would shout out whoever that actress is. Nice.
And here's the part you're talking about.
Here's the part I'm talking about.
Two of the girls begin kissing. Yep. And Jeffrey yells that that's not natural.
Yeah.
He's trying to bring a woman back from the dead. This is so goddamn funny. It's such great satire.
Yeah. And it is good satire of the conservative mindset, again, going back to it. Of just, I want to do all this shit, but I want that, so that's fine.
Yes.
This shit that doesn't affect me at all, and is just two people doing whatever they want to do. Yeah. That is of the devil.
And he also developed a batch of super crack to kill people. This is a subtle aspect of the movie. Aside from this scene, we're not given a lot of clues of Jeffrey's conservative nature.
It's just sort of a vibe you pick up.
Sort of, yeah.
Mostly in this scene, but once you accept that as a fact about his character, you can
put that on other stuff,
and it fits with the rest of his actions.
And again,
the movie,
on this watch, I was looking more for meaning, and
it's sort of
Frank Henenlotter's philosophy and because again, after I ended it, I was like, wow, this is a feminist film. Now I'm watching it in that context of maybe this isn't just a wacky, crazy movie. Let's see what Frank Henenlotter is saying.
It's sort of like when you get to the end of a murder mystery, if it's very well written, and then you go back through it and you're like, oh, this all makes sense in context. Yeah. Except in this case, the killer is bigotry. So yeah, I wrote down, fuck you, Jeffrey. Fuck you.
And I love that Jeffrey is a surprisingly complex character.
Yeah.
And
again, I said it as a joke, but I couldn't be more serious. This is one of the most accurate book-to-screen adaptations of Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that this weird Jersey fuck is that.
Do you think this movie would have been more popular?
Sure.
Do you think it would have been better if Jeffrey had been played by Bruce Springsteen?
No.
What about Glenn Danzig?
No.
What about Kevin Smith?
No. If possible, a harder no than the previous no's.
What about the Jersey Devil?
Just the actual Jersey Devil? Yeah. I'll have to think on that one. That's tough. That's tough. That's tough for me, because I love the Jersey Devil.
I know you do.
His episode of Cake Boss was the best one.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah.
The studio is covered with Jersey Devil plushies.
Absolutely.
And you have those tattoos.
I do have just like an absolute sleeve.
And I've used your computer, and I've accidentally seen some of your browser history. Mm-hmm. I see you're looking for the full human Jersey Devil suit. I don't know whether it's for you to wear, for someone else to wear.
I'd rather not get into it.
Okay, fine, that's fine.
It's a little bit personal. Fine. It's a little bit personal. But yeah, no. My love for the Jersey Devil knows no bounds.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about it. Honestly, you bringing up the Jersey Devil is like me bringing up Elvira earlier.
Horse heads just drive you wild.
Just wild.
On anything other than a horse, it's just, so sexy.
We didn't get into this, but Horse Girl was like a difficult episode for me to get through.
Well, thankfully there weren't a lot of horses in that movie.
Not a lot, but every time there was, oh my god. Okay.
That's why you love Equus. And
Yeah.
why you never use the phrase horseplay.
It's just, it means a lot to me. So
It's like-
I can't just throw it about willy-nilly.
Then we get one of the most brilliant sequences ever put on film.
Yes.
The sex workers start exploding. And
Should have sent a poet.
oh my god.
Now,
Right.
this is, again, I think I already mentioned this a little bit in the opening. Frank Henenlotter did not have a good time making this movie. It's not that he doesn't like the movie. He said that the movie is 95% the movie he wanted to make, which I think is honestly more than a lot of artists can ask for,
Sure.
especially with how collaborative movies are and how commodified any kind of art is these days. But he said that just the process of working on it, he thought this movie was hilarious, and he was getting a lot of judgment from people on set for laughing at this stuff. They were like, this is all horrible. Why is he laughing? Which is apparently something that also happened to him on the set of Basket Case. People would be like, how dare you? And he's like, what? Which, very Frank Henenlotter attitude.
Sure.
What? They saddled him with a cinematographer he'd never worked with who just...
Roger Deakins.
Maybe. Who just, fucking hated him and would just pick fights in front of the crew all the time, apparently only in front of the crew. But he said the one moment of pure joy that he got out of making this movie was the day they blew up to use his words, blew up the hookers.
It's an amazing sequence, and
it is one of the most technically, the special effects in this movie are actually really good.
Yeah, there's some
and
good stuff.
The special effects in this scene are incredible.
now the actual explosions, like the actual things themselves, look kind of fireworky. They're not amazing.
Yeah.
But it seems like Frank Henenlotter made a model for each one of these ladies.
He did.
Specifically just to blow it up.
That's exactly right.
It's full nude models.
Yes.
And just to destroy them, just to blow them up with fireworks.
The casting process for the sex workers in this movie involved him taking these women aside. They some of them were porn stars, some of them were just pinup models, Playboy bunnies, people like that. And he was taking them all right, obviously I know that you're good with nudity. Are you good with nudity? Good. Okay. How good are you with staying in one place for a really long time while a bunch of people put a truly inhumane amount of plaster on you to get these statues? And he made sure that they fully understood what they were getting into before they got into it.
Frank Henenlotter.
Because Henenlotter's a cool dude.
He's a good man.
Yeah.
And that's...
And
especially with exploitation and trash directors, you don't get that so often.
Again, Russ Meyer does not seem like he does that a lot, and so it's always great to see that. And they created all of these dummies, and then the direction that they gave the actresses was, whatever you're doing to react to how the super crack is making you feel, you have to end up in this pose. And then they would literally, in some shots, it's in the same shot as when they get into the pose, they jump cut to the dummy, which looks incredible.
Yeah.
And then they filled the dummies with as much explosives as they could pack in there. They originally filled them up with the safe amount that their expert told them, and all that happened was smoke came out, and they were like, okay, triple that. And then truly a 4th of July jamboree breaks out as these dummies burst apart and just bust up everywhere, and it's phenomenal.
In my head, I'm now picturing this sequence set to either the 1812 Overture or the Star Spangled Banner.
This is absolutely made for either Tchaikovsky or John Philip Sousa.
Yeah.
It's an incredible sequence. I wrote down.
We can't do it justice.
No, this is like watching Sonny Chiba do karate levels of pure cinematic gold.
I can tell you a bunch of sex workers are exploding.
Yeah.
But you need to see it.
I can't, the actors are giving it their all. The special effects is perfect. The cinematography is perfect.
And it's just so fucking insane.
And it's so fucking insane.
They're exploding because they smoke super crack.
Complete with the fact that, the first one that blows up, just looks like she's starting to feel like a little bit ill.
Hot. A little hot.
She's like, is it getting hot? Is what she says. And Jeffrey says, she's gonna blow! And next thing you know, yes, she does. And it's great.
Zorro has been waiting out in a car. He's been getting worried that it's going on too long.
He's pacing in the lobby.
He breaks down the door to the room just in time to be hit with the decapitated head of one of his workers.
Oh my god. That... If the scene wasn't already perfect, that just knocked it over the fucking top for me when the severed head flies face first into his face and throws him like Superman style across the room. It's so good.
Now,
I honestly thought he might have been dead, like the character in this scene. He's not. He comes back, but like, I know all you Zorro fans are like hungry for more Zorro, but man, goddamn.
I become obsessed with this idea. That this turns into Unforgiven, where the rest of the sex workers pay to have Bill Money come into town with Morgan Freeman and the Schofield Kid, and like to get revenge. And I just like, here you've been exploding whores.
Except because this is an exploitation film, we're not going to get like A-list celebrities. So the Clint Eastwood's character is played by Lance Henriksen in this version.
I was going to say Billy Drago.
Oh, never mind. Yours is better. Yours is better.
I hear you've been exploding whores. Using whores.
My girlfriend used to work in this brothel, and then some weird shit happened to her. Not going to talk about it.
And I'm using whores because that's what Clint Eastwood says in Unforgiven.
Yeah, we're quoting the movie. By the way, that was Henenlotter's first thought for the title of this movie. As he was pitching it, he described his mind, his process of thought before it exploded out of his mouth being... He's like, oh, what do you call this act? And he's like, the aristocrats. No. But no, his first thing was Frankenhooker. No, that's too harsh.
That's too rough.
He's like, that's almost his exact words. That's too rough. Frankenhooker. Yeah, there was another step between that, but I don't remember. I just remember Frankenhooker because even I, watching it, I was like,
that sounds so much less fun.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, that's too rough. That's too harsh. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. The man knows what he's doing.
Yeah. We get a great shot of the hotel room filled with severed and charred body parts.
It's so good.
Jeffrey apologizes. He promises to put them all back together.
Which you know is never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. Also, he's going to steal some of their parts. They're not all going to be complete.
Yeah, no, yeah. And also, I love, again, we're talking about like this thing that could be horrifying. Like a bunch of humans just exploded. They flew apart. They're very precise about what they're doing here. Henenlotter, the special effects guy, because he knew Henenlotter's work, came to Henenlotter, was like, so we're going to put a lot of like gore in these or something like that, right? And he's like, no, we're not going to do that because this isn't a horror scene, it's a joke.
Yes.
And
that's so important to the tone.
Exactly.
It's
so when these girls blow apart, they look like they're made of plaster or porcelain. Yeah. And even then, when we're seeing all these severed limbs, it's not like something like The Cave and Jeepers Creepers, where everything's like really visceral and nasty. Again, they look like all these women were made from porcelain or something, and he's just like picking up all the stuff he's going to put together in like an erector set situation later on.
Here's where we learn that Jeffrey's serum is estrogen based. Mm-hmm. He collects the parts, puts most of them in trash bags, except for a leg, which he slings over his shoulder.
Yes.
And takes them back to New Jersey. Back at the lab, Jeffrey begins picking and choosing parts, hands, breasts, legs, being very critical and trying to find the best. Again, this is a commentary about the male gaze and treating women as body parts.
And also, it's just some wild shit to see in a movie. To see
it is a man pick up, just sort through a pile of breasts.
Just a pile of breasts, and just like sorting through them. It's wild. It's wild. Fucking wild. Also, I love that in a, again, very Jersey subversion, very American Jersey subversion of the Frankenstein tropes. Instead of stitching his monsters together, he's welding it together.
He's welding. He also seems to have some sort of adhesive paste, maybe.
Which is,
there's
again,
some
purple.
Stitches.
He's like, yeah.
That might be just applying the estrogen serum.
Might be, sure. But he's putting the purple down, and then he's welding the creature together, which is just crazy. And also, he keeps all the legs that he's choosing from in an umbrella stand.
Yes.
Which is chef's kiss.
Brilliant detail.
And then he finds bunions on one and freaks out.
And grabs a work file.
A work file, yeah.
Like a carpenter's file, and sands them off. He takes Elizabeth's head out of the freezer and dumps the rest of the lady parts into the chest. He pledges his love to Elizabeth, and we get a great little comedy beat where he just drops the fucking head.
It's even better because right before he drops it, he says, "As long as I'm alive, you'll be safe," and just immediately drops her.
Perfect Mel Brooks comedy beat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeffrey has sewn the pieces together. The storm is coming. He's throwing switches. The slab raises into the sky. Classic Frankenstein. It has a lightning rod.
It's got a big lightning rod. It's almost exactly the same prop or set piece from Bride of Frankenstein. Like, the way that it's built, it's almost exactly the same. And again, as a Frankenstein nerd, thank you. I like that. I like that thing you did.
Oh, that's my favorite Tom Hanks movie, That Thing You Did.
That thing you did.
Every time you did that thing you did.
Oh, man. I didn't know if I was ready for a sequel to That Thing You Do, but That Thing You Did really delivered.
It's all of them as moldering corpses.
Oh, man.
But the lightning electrifies not just the body, but the freezer full of parts.
Yes. And I love that we don't get immediate... We are shown this repeatedly. Like, it's drilled into our heads, hey, the lightning got down here too. But we're not given immediate satisfaction about what that means.
No.
They let that tension hang in the air,
and
and
the
I
payoff,
think that's great.
The payoff is the most amazing part of the movie.
God damn it.
Now we get our first look, an hour into the movie, of the titular Frankenhooker. Snow white face, long black hair. Some
purple hair.
Oh, is it purple?
It's purple.
On my TV it looked black.
That's okay.
But
dark purple.
Some mismatched parts, some stitches, some...
They made a detail of one of her arms has a patch of skin covering a lot of it, a lot of the arm that is black.
Yes.
So she's just like clearly taking patches from a lot of different people that don't fit.
Of course, Jeffrey would not use a lot of black parts for his ideal woman, because we can assume things about Jeffrey.
Yeah, conservative.
But odd that there was something about this forearm that he was like, this is so sexy.
This particular forearm right here. I don't know a lot of guys who have very specific opinions about forearms.
I don't.
Jeffrey's just that kind of a freak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe and Mick G. Only two people I can think of.
How specific?
She has big elevated shoes.
Yes, she's got them platform 70 shoes.
Her head twitches a bit, and she begins to spout the phrases the sex workers were saying. Want a date, got any money, want a party.
Just like Robert De Niro's version of Frankenstein Monster, not only does her brain have memories, but her body parts have memories. And at least at this point, the body parts' memories are taking over her motor functions.
I'm sorry, Robert De Niro played Frankenstein?
Oh, you weren't aware of this?
No.
Yes, Robert De Niro played Frankenstein's monster in Kenneth Branagh's version called Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that was made to cash in on the success of Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Wow.
He does a good job, but he can't shake his accent, so even though it's set in period...
Fire!
Yeah.
Fire
bad. So, but he has this moment where he's like, sort of like, these hands know how to play the recorder. I don't know how I know how to play the recorder, but you would. Maybe, or do you even keep track of where you got these hands from? And it's just, it's sort of that Harvey Keitel. I imagine what it's like to watch Harvey Keitel in Last Temptation.
Well, Willem Dafoe also has that thick Willem Dafoe accent.
I don't remember what Willem Dafoe's accent is, but...
well, he just sounds like Willem Dafoe, and that's not how you expect Jesus to sound.
That's not how you expect Jesus to sound. Fair enough.
You know, I'm something of a messiah myself.
But yeah, so it's very weird. But he's good. He's Robert De Niro. He's doing a good job.
Obviously, this would entirely fuck up the movie, but I want a version of that where the body parts are made from Robert De Niro's past roles, and he just starts repeating like lines from him, like,
just
"Do you want to fuck my wife?" Or no, "Did you fuck my wife?"
Did you fuck my wife? Oh man,
I love Patty Mullins' performance as Frankenhooker.
Oh my god, yes.
Like they obviously got her for the body,
yeah,
and her willingness to
do all this. They specifically said in the documentary that part of the reason why she got the part was not only because of her attractiveness, but also because she was just down with their sickness. They met with her, they explained what the movie was, what she was going to be doing, and she was like, "That sounds great. Let's do it."
Her physical performance, it's very big, it's very goofy, but it's perfect for the movie.
As you would expect from a Henenlotter production.
And she's giving 100% committed.
Absolutely.
She's making all these crazy faces.
I think I wrote down, like, it sucks because, like, again, much like a lot of actors in this movie, a lot of actors in Basket Case, most actors that have ever worked with Henenlotter, unfortunately, she didn't do a lot after this.
No.
And I think this was her first acting. She did some other acting, but like very little.
Yeah.
And she's delightful. She's not the best actress in the world, but she's
selling it, and she's committed.
And she was very likable and committed in the opening when she was playing the so-called normal version of her character. And she's so good and and committed to this part of the character as well. Her twitches, the weird way that she walks, she does this sort of like the fish hook mouth trick that a lot, and that's on a lot of the box art, and she just looks like she's having the best time.
Yeah,
and that's great. That's amazing.
Elizabeth goes out of the garage. She lurches into the night.
Heading for the red light district.
Exactly. She's called back to her own home. The freezer chest has started to rock. If this freezer chest isn't rocking, don't come a knocking.
Don't come a knocking.
Someone's having sex with some venison.
But Jeffrey doesn't notice that right now
because he's knocked out.
Because he's knocked out.
He wakes up. He pursues Elizabeth. Realizes what's going on, that her old body parts are taking her back across the bridge, back to Hellland.
Back to Hellland. And she's just going around, and she's running into people. Every time that she encounters someone and asks them, "Want a date? Got any money?" and they say no or don't answer right away, she just absolutely smacks the shit out of them, and it's great. And then she just keeps going down, yelling, "Want a date? Want a date?" Again, this is the quote that got made into a voice box for the VHS copy.
And everyone is not into her vibe. I feel like partly because she's so aggressive and commanding, like that is a turn off for what
it might also
might also her appearance possibly, but no one ever seems to comment or be worried about her,
right? Because
all she encounters is men.
Yes, and even though she is stitched together and like looks like a Frankenstein monster, she's still what's the actress's name again?
Patty Mullen.
She's still Patty Mullen. She's still a very attractive lady, and I think that it's more just like the sort of like weird, again, sort of like voice box parrots kind of yelling the 5 phrases I know over and over effect of it. But she does meet one person.
She finds an old squat bald man who is very into her vibe.
Incredibly into her vibe.
This is what he's been waiting for his entire life.
He is so into her vibe.
Played
by an actor named David Lipman. Not a big actor in any case, but I just wanted to name him because his performance in this movie is one of my favorites.
Yeah, he is.
He's
a very believable little creep.
A very believable little creep.
Lipman, one of my favorite superheroes. Make his lips grow bigger.
Absolutely.
Not like if you were falling out of a plane, you could cushion them. Other than that, unless he's sucking dick, not a whole lot of. Not a whole lot of a use.
Extremely pillowy kisses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh, butterfly kisses.
Butterfly kisses.
Able to just engulf your entire face in one butterfly kiss. Our lip man.
Our lip man.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. lip man.
Died in 9/11.
Also, everyone's getting so up in arms that Turning Red didn't say anything about 9/11. The real ant question is, why isn't Frankenhooker talking about 9/11? Yeah. Lip Man is right there. Show some respect. Anyway. Dated reference immediately.
Yeah. They go to a sleazy hotel where she pushes him on the bed. He's still so excited.
He's so excited.
And even when she's repeating the old lines, talking about Jersey Boy and
she's
Dr. Jeffrey. And
quoting a bunch of stuff that we'd already
he's like,
seen.
sure, I'm you want to play doctor? I'll be Dr. Jeffrey.
I'll be Dr. Jeffrey. I'm down for whatever.
She removes her clothes, revealing more of her bruised and mottled body. She has very dark purple nipples.
Finally seeing the fabled purple nurples I'd heard so much about.
Oh, you've been waiting your entire life.
Yes.
Every night on bended knee, when's going to be my time?
Exactly.
You've heard about them in song and rhyme and
rhyme and legends.
Legend. Yeah. There was famous Scandinavian nurple cycle.
Yeah, and all the Nurple comics that I read so much about.
She climbs on top of him and begins to ride, and
another dad joke that I wrote down: the scene becomes steamy.
Oh,
as
smoke begins to rise, electricity swarms the man's mouth. Before his head just pops off a bit. Like I think his nipples explode.
His entire body explodes, leading me to. I think that the idea is that she just has a lot of electricity. Yeah. But I wrote down she must have super crack in her vagina.
Maybe
because that was my initial
she's
guess.
Just filled with electricity.
I think that's the idea. But because the last time I'd seen someone explode like this was because of super crack.
True.
You can see where my brain was.
You're just following the internal logic of the film.
Obviously, yeah, exactly.
But the man's head comes off in her hands, proclaiming, "Oh, that was wonderful."
And then finally his head explodes as well. Oh, man. It was so good.
Jeffrey hits the streets trying to find Elizabeth, asking people, including a Swedish man.
A Swedish man wearing a big Batman t-shirt.
Which I'm sure they had permission to use.
I'm sure just as much permission as they had to film in Times Square, which they didn't. Much like in Basket Case, this was filmed without permits. And Jeffrey has a great line, because the guy speaks to him in Swedish.
Yeah.
And Batman says, You're talking to me in Swedish in Times Square! Apparently, this is a joke just for Steven, but apparently my impression of Jeffrey is quickly turning into Joey Wheeler from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged.
I mean, it's mostly Christopher Walken to me.
Yeah! 2 mice fell into a bucket of cream, yeah.
Elizabeth steals the exploded man's money. I guess more she loots his corpse.
She loots his ashes. Exactly. Achievement unlocked.
As she's leaving, she encounters a sleazy man who kisses her forcibly.
Bruce Boxleitner.
Yes. But he also goes electric and explodes, and his head crashes through the window and into a garbage can.
This actor, by the way, the actor's name is Thomas Crognall, and he is so proud of this scene. He actually does have other acting work.
Wonderful.
But he is so proud of this scene in particular that this scene of him kissing her and getting electrocuted is his IMDb profile picture.
That's so sweet.
He has other stuff that he could choose. I'm sure he has headshots. That's what he wants to be remembered for.
Why wouldn't you?
I would.
That greasy ass ponytail he has. And it's so weird and thick and like
it's a very thick
it's like he had
ponytail.
Like a super mullet and like
it's like I gotta get this under control.
Elizabeth walks the streets screaming, "Party, party, wanna party." She makes her way to Huevos Grande.
Yes.
Zorro is there mourning his exploded bitches.
Yes. His words, not ours.
Yes. Her eyes lock on a bowl of pretzels, and if there's anything that can bring the real Elizabeth out of this flesh monster she's become,
yes,
it's some rolled gold pretzels.
That was always her brand.
Yeah. They put it on her tombstone. She ravenously eats them while continuing to repeat previous lines, mentioning Zorro and Jeffrey, which gets Zorro's attention, as another guy leads her away. Again, not concerned that she is not responding to anything he says, or that she seems to be not well physically.
Yeah.
Just being attracted to her.
Yep.
And here's where I noted that the only men who seemed to be turned off by her were ones that she was very aggressive to with her intentions. Anyone, people are attracted to her if they can just take advantage of her seemingly mindless nature.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
The men who led her away crawls under the table, presumably to do sex stuff.
Sex stuff, yeah, I believe.
But he too gets electrified and explodes.
And
this is a big old special effect explosion.
Oh,
where
yeah.
It's a superimposed effect.
While this has been happening, there have also been cutaways of Jeffrey interviewing, running around New York, interviewing various sex workers. And again, Henenlotter gives all the sex workers the best lines. There's a sex worker comes up and gives him a menu of what she's offering. I didn't even
notice that.
And she's like, not like a physical menu, but she lists off some. She's like, we got handcuffs, whips, enemas, dildos.
Because he's talking about I'm looking for a tall, attractive woman covered in scars, and
she doesn't say dildos. She says dildoos, which I love.
Oh man,
racks,
that's what the Australians say.
Racks, chain link, barbed wire, paws, and feathers. I love after
I do remember that part.
That's the button you chose to end on.
But Jay finds out where Elizabeth is thanks to Rorschach.
That's right. That's right.
An older Rorschach who's just an apocalyptic street preacher.
Yeah, and he's
raving
talking
about the end times and the whore of Babylon.
He mentions the whore of Babylon, and Jeffrey says, "So you seen her?" And she says, "She's in the bar. Thank you." And he runs just the kind of shit that only happens in Henenlotter and Brooks films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zorro confronts Elizabeth and knocks her block off.
Literally.
Punches her, and her head flops back, and I love this dummy. Her head's just hanging on by this bit of viscera. It's beautiful.
It's an incredible special effect. This is specifically the one where the special effects guy had one way he wanted to do it, and Henenlotter was like, "Do it this way," and the guy's like, "Are you sure?" And then they got to the day, and he's like, "That works so fucking well. How do you?" I'm not going to try to explain what they did because I didn't understand it, but it was. Henenlotter knows what the fuck he's doing.
He does.
Yeah. And I also love what Zorro says to her when he runs up to her. He's shaking her, like, "This isn't your arm. Where'd you get this arm?" Because her arm has the brand on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He recognizes all the parts. And...
It's just a bizarre thing to say to a person.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it happens regularly. It's not a common way to start a conversation. Although, if I were a prank person, that would be a good prank. Just go up to strangers and be like, "That's my arm." Imagine how frightening that encounter would be. A person you don't know just comes up like, "That's my arm."
Oh, that's a nightmare. Just
my God, that's...
I would... Honestly, that would activate my social anxiety in a way that it has probably never been activated before.
Actually might make a good short film.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a short story that Roald Dahl would have written back in the day. And
the person just keeps following the other person around,
just
outside
keeps
their
insisting.
house, being like, "I want my arm back."
Yeah.
Jeffrey takes Elizabeth back to the car. As they speed off, her head once again flops back, even though he lovingly put it back on its perch. Zorro follows in pursuit. Back in Jersey, Jeffrey does some repairs, including fitting Elizabeth with the classic neck bolts.
And I love that detail that's specifically to fix a problem. It wasn't originally something he put there. They had to fix that particular issue. I love that detail.
He gives her another dose of electricity, and this seems to bring back the normal Elizabeth.
Elizabeth's brain is finally in working order.
Jeffrey explains what he did, and Elizabeth is very excited and proud until she realizes, "I'm an abomination."
Yeah, she's happy that she was brought back to life. She's happy that Jeffrey is
performing this miracle, and he was always talking about bringing the dead back to life. This is great. But then she looks down at what he's done to her, and again, it is this sort of thing about her literal, in a way that is not usually meant, her literal bodily autonomy has been taken away from her. The choices were made about her body that she was not consulted with. Exactly. And again, all Jeffrey's fantasy, not considering I'm going to accurately rebuild you.
Right.
I'm going to make you look how you were. I'm going to make you look how I want.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, and also you need to be happy about it.
I'm going to make you, quote unquote, better.
I'm going to make you perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
The centerfold goddess of the century.
Centerfold goddess of the century.
And Jeffrey's trying to calm her down, tells her he loves her. I think he also makes, like, well, I need, lives had to be sacrificed for this to happen.
Right. Yeah, it's like, it's like, I worked so hard for it, all this stuff. Like, yeah. And it's all about him.
And Zorro comes in, and he lops Jeffrey's head off with a machete.
In a movie full of crazy shit, wasn't expecting that. Like that's just it's not like a wild, freaky Henenlotter shit thing.
It's just
that's gonna come in a second. But like it's just in narrative cinema, you don't see this very often.
No, you expect some sort of confrontation, some sort of dialogue, some sort of struggle. Yeah. No, Zorro does what most people would probably do if they were just angry that their sex workers got exploded by super crack and were melded into a Frankenstein monster, and you know the dude who did it, and you want to kill him. You might as well just kill him.
Just kill, and he just lops his head off with a machete, and then immediately goes to threatening Elizabeth,
and says he's taking her back because those are his girls.
Yeah,
and he names a bunch of them. One of them, Chartreuse. I remember that.
That's right. That's right.
But the pieces in the freezer are getting restless.
Yes.
They knock over the freezer.
Yep.
And the serum spills out. And here, I had forgotten about this part. Somehow. Somehow I forgot about this part in the year since. Because I remember, like, the big, funny, crazy shit. Like, the sex workers exploding, the lawnmower stuff, the super crack. This is genuinely horrifying. Like,
there is, like, I'm sure that someone could look at this and find this funny. And there is something that's, like, genuinely absurd about it.
It is.
And there is something, but, like, God damn it. If you thought, like, man, there's not enough stomach-turning horror in this movie, in this horror comedy, they saved the best for last, motherfuckers.
This is some Arrow shit. Arrow shit. This is some
Reanimator shit.
This is like if Russ Meyer and David Cronenberg got into like a teleporter accident. This is the movie they would make.
The body parts, the spare body parts,
they've melded and mutated.
Sid's Toys style from Toy Story.
Yes.
They've melded together and mutated and formed into various like combination body parts. There's an upside down torso where the breasts are at the bottom, and there's a cackling mouth up top. Jesus. I think there's like, does it have an eyeball in its belly button?
No.
Or maybe I'm misremembering that. There's so much shit.
There's a head with multiple arms that are sort of like legs, but also has a hand in front that it's grabbing Zorro with.
I guess it's kind of comforting that after all the movies that we've seen for this show, I can still get upset by something.
It always is. And that just makes it all the more amazing.
But I was like genuinely upsetting.
No, these are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
These are fucking insane.
Yeah.
They're legitimate. Like, this is some, like I said, Arrow, like, Japanese horror manga shit, like the more extreme stuff. Like, I wanted to say Junji Ito, but this feels more like Shintaro Kago.
Not enough fish shit to be Junji Ito.
He normally doesn't like do sex stuff that often. That's more Kago. There's a twisted head like that has arms melded around it. That's just sitting atop a pile of breasts.
Yes, yeah.
And we don't get like long shots of these things.
No,
that one especially, we only get sort of like angles and flashes of because it's so fucking disturbing.
Just like the blood splatter in the beginning, Henenlotter knows how to get the most bang for his buck, and it's not about excess. It's about giving you fucked up shit for exactly as long as he thinks that you can handle it, both in terms of like how disturbing it is, but also how long you can look at this before you start thinking that's rubber.
Yeah, very true.
And
very true.
And it's like, yeah, I fully understand in the back of my brain that all this shit is fake. It's still fucked.
It's still a crazy vision. And here's something I'm only just now appreciating as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about how goofy and silly and not scary this movie is. This is almost like the ultimate trick where it's like, want to see something fucked up?
Literally.
Where it's like, it's just like out of nowhere. It's like, oh my God, the rest of the time I've been laughing. This has been silly. It's been campy.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing something genuinely disturbing.
Going back to my Unforgiven analogy at the beginning, we don't really talk about Westerns on the show, but whenever we do talk about Westerns, Brad has this thing where he says that, like, the best part about Westerns is that there's that drop. They're like in a dubstep song, the drop, where things will be like mostly story, and then there's that moment where the action just kicks in and it's visceral, and it's, if you get a good movie like Unforgiven or The Wild Bunch, it's visceral, it's crazy, it's gnarly, it's awesome. That's what this is with horror. It's kind of like those old Roger Corman films where there would be almost no horror, just kind of atmosphere for the whole thing, and then you get one gigantic gross out moment at the end. That's this, but like, whereas most of those Roger Corman movies are just awful, this is done by a fucking master.
Yes.
And
this is absolutely incredible. The movie would be worth it.
Just
we talk a lot about separating the meat from the gristle.
Yes.
Even if this movie were mostly gristle, if it were just this ending scene,
if this were a Roger Corman movie,
notable. Like, this would make it, and probably be enough to end up on this show.
Yeah.
Because that's how goddamn insane and twisted and fucked up it is.
But the movie has the absolute audacity to be incredibly entertaining all the way through, up until this point, and then have this on top of that, which is, just insane. Henenlotter, you're a madman.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch an execution. Like,
it's great. A perfectly executed slam dunk.
And this is like exalted trash. This is like
that's
because
exactly what this is.
Again, the effects are great.
Yes,
there's a message in there. Maybe you've come to agree with me. Maybe I've made my point.
I think I do. I think that the only caveat that I would say is that this is a man telling other men to cool it.
True,
and that is still feminist. So I agree with you.
It's not overt.
It's cooler when there is a female voice presence, like actually speaking from the female perspective.
Sure.
And we don't get that in this movie. The women are still being depicted through the male gaze. It's just a much more responsible male gaze than we get in a lot of other exploitation films. That's the only caveat I would give it. At the same time, men can be feminists too.
Yes.
Both you and I think, count ourselves as feminists.
Yeah.
And I think that I now agree this movie is definitely feminist, and in its loud, brash New Yorker Henenlotter way.
But again, it's not that loud because you didn't notice it. You actually need to watch it a couple times to really understand the satire and commentary that are present, because again, there's so much more noticeable, crazy, wacky shit.
Mm-hmm. There is definitely that sort of Frankensteinian thing of like, who's the real monster here? And it's definitely Jeffrey.
Yes.
Yeah.
The flesh monsters pull Zorro into the freezer.
Oh my God.
The door shuts. Then it opens again so an arm can pull in some crack that Zorro dropped. How are they going to smoke this crack? Oh,
it's the
maybe out of Zorro's skull.
Yeah, probably. It's the perfect comedy button to
the horrors you've just seen.
The movie is just like, hey, I'm going to fuck your brain hole for a second, and then right at the end, and we're still a comedy, pulling in the crack.
Yep. Elizabeth picks up Jeffrey's head. Mm-hmm. She has a plan. Next, we see Jeffrey wakes up on the slab. Turns out, Elizabeth, now dressed like a cartoon doctor.
Yes.
Looking cute as hell.
You cute as a button.
She followed Jeffrey's notes. They were very understandable.
Yes.
And transplanted his head onto a woman's body. He now has huge...
Because only women could be brought to life.
Right. I don't think I pointed that out before.
You did.
Because
you did actually mention that. And
I mentioned it was an estrogen serum. I didn't know if I mentioned that only women...
No, we did. We did.
Sorry.
I took my Adderall today. I'm pretty sure I can trust my memory.
Okay. I did not sleep well last night, so I don't know how well I can trust mine.
Apparently, neither of us did, so we're good. I at least have amphetamines.
Gotcha. And I have depressants. But he now has huge tits. His dick is gone.
He said, "What happened to my Johnson?"
And this is the punchline of the movie, as we talked about. It's a shaggy dog story that is leading up to this twist. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I feel this is the film's thesis statement, because Elizabeth begins parroting all the things that Jeffrey told her back to him.
Every line that Jeffrey had in the previous scene right before he got his head lopped off, she says almost exactly verbatim, but with a lot more sass and a lot less sincerity, because she knows what she did.
She knows what she did, and she knew Jeffrey would be upset.
Yeah.
But she is treating him the same way.
After all, Jeffrey thinks that women and women relationships, WLW relationships, are unnatural. So, go fuck yourself, Jeffrey.
But, that's Frankenhooker.
His butt, and I wrote down, Jeffrey screams in body dysmorphia as the movie ends.
But I love it. I love it so much. I think, and again, I don't think, granted, that's a punchline comedic ending, but I feel like it was there with intent to point out Jeffrey's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a punchline. It was also, hey, why don't you think about what you thought was so fun and sexy, building the perfect woman.
I think that it is. And at first, there was a moment, because a lot more has been said in recent years about the rights of trans people and taking those issues seriously. And there is an element always whenever you have, like, a guy is dressing up as a woman as a joke in a movie. And I had to take a little bit after watching this movie to, like, think about that last joke and be like, because on the one, it felt right when I was watching it, but I needed to interrogate it and be like, what is this joke saying? Like, let's take the fun out of this.
No, yeah, you could.
And I think that it still works. I don't think that this is in any way hateful towards trans people.
I don't think so.
Because at the end of the day, the idea is that Jeffrey does presumably consider himself a man. Mm-hmm. He is never. He even says, "Where is my Johnson?" He seems perfectly comfortable with the sex he was born with. The issue here that he's having, the horror that he's having, isn't the idea of being a woman. The idea is that his bodily autonomy has been taken away.
Exactly.
And there's something that someone said to me once that really made me understand what homophobia was. They said homophobia is straight men being afraid of being treated the way they treat women. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a big part of this for Jeffrey as well. At the end here,
exactly. And that's
the male gaze. He's now a victim of the male gaze.
Exactly. And it's like you've been saying the entire time, Jeffrey's character, conservative mindset is like, it's okay for me to do, it's not okay for you to do.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we see here.
I think that there could be a danger, definitely, if you were not willing to live in this movie's world and really sort of like explore it the way that we do because we're on the show.
Yeah.
Where you could take the joke the wrong way.
Sure.
But I think the intention behind it from Henenlotter is a positive one.
Absolutely.
And I think that this movie is a goddamn fucking masterpiece.
And as we've said, as I always like to say, if you watch this ending and you do find it in some way transphobic, if that's how you take it, that's how you take it. That's fine.
Like we said at the beginning of this episode, if you and in a lot of our episodes, if this is offensive to you, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
You're allowed to feel how you feel.
You're allowed to feel how you feel. And we're not the ones. We're two straight cis white men.
Yes,
that you're allowed to think that we're full of it, and that, and you're probably right.
But I will say one thing on trans issues in this movie.
Sure,
we do see some shots of trans women who are sex workers.
Yes,
and they're played a bit comedically, but it's not a big portion of the film.
It's not a big portion of the film. I only detected one. Oh no, there was two. Mm-hmm. There was the one in the bar, and they are portrayed a little bit broadly, but it's never. Again, they're portrayed as broadly as everyone else is in the movie.
True.
I can definitely see someone getting offended by it, but it felt like that sort of me and my dick energy, that Henenlotter energy of like. Henenlotter bears no ill will to any human being except for the cinematographer of Frankenhooker. Everyone else he's fine with. He just might not always have the best takes on things.
And again, it was 1990.
It was 1990.
As much as of a cop-out as that excuse might be to some,
sure,
people thought differently.
Yeah, and I don't think that the point is I don't think he ever thought that he was going to be hurting anyone.
No, I don't think so.
Except for maybe conservative assholes, in which case, fuck them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to say about Frankenhooker?
I'm officially a Henenlotter stan. I can't wait to check out Bad Biology, even if I hate it. Hey,
Watch Brain Damage first.
I'll check out Brain Damage first.
Maybe you could bring that on the show.
I had to work up to Eraserhead with Lynch. I'm sure that if Bad Biology is like peak fucked upness and like crazy shit from Henenlotter, maybe I should work up to it a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie. Even if you just listen to this and were like, whatever, I'm not going to check this out, just listen to the thing. Please watch Frankenhooker. Believe me, it's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, if you love camp, if you love schlock, if
Yes.
you love horror comedy, if you love
if you love the Hammer Frankenstein movies and want a movie that does a really good job sending up the formula of those films, this is great. This is something I forgot to mention that I just love about this movie. I've always thought that The Brain That Wouldn't Die was a movie with enough good in it that deserved a proper remake. Mm-hmm. And this is it. This is like a straight... Like, the plot is almost exactly the same, except all the bad parts have been replaced with good things.
all of the good things in the world are present in Frankenhooker.
All the
a
good
veritable
things.
Garden of Eden in cinema. Do you know what you want to talk about next week?
Not even a slightest clue.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us for this hopefully very fun episode about a very fun movie. We will talk with you soon.
That's turned out to be exactly as long as our Tron episode.